Good morning, it's 9:30. I'd like to call the special meeting of Athabasca County Council to order. The only item of business after the approval of the agenda is a public hearing. Is anyone willing to move the approval of the agenda? Councillor Cromwell has so moved. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? The motion is adopted 7-0. None opposed, I assume. It would be in order to receive a motion to recess the council meeting to go into a public hearing. Councillor Mins has moved. We recess the council meeting. Any discussion on that matter? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? The motion is adopted 7-0. I declare the public hearing open. I'm Brian Hall for the read, for anyone who hasn't figured that out after 2.5 years. And I will chair the hearing. On behalf of council, I'd like to welcome you, even though no one is here, but maybe we can hope there's someone online watching. Most of council is present, and I think we'll forego introductions since we all know who each other are. The secretary of the public hearing is Bob Beck, who is the CAO for the county, and any persons who have joined the meeting in person or via Zoom and wishing to be heard should give their name now. There's no one is on Zoom. The public hearing for bylaw 01-32023 is now open.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The purpose of this public hearing is for Athabasca Council of the County to hear testimony from interested parties. It is not meant to be a debate between presenters, and all comments must be directed to council through the chairperson. Only one person may speak at a time, and each person wishing to provide input to council will have the opportunity to do so. The ground rules of the hearing and the order of speaking will be: Director of Community Protective Services, Krista Wilkinson, will speak first to outline the background and provide an explanation of Land Use Bylaw 013-2023. Members of the public who are wishing to be heard will be given the opportunity to speak. Director Wilkinson will be giving an opportunity to present closing remarks or address any of the issues presented. Councillors will be given the opportunity to ask questions. Council will then end the public hearing and will later consider the information received at the public hearing. Council will only consider matters raised at the hearing. Only councillors may ask questions of speakers during the hearing. If any persons want to ask questions of a speaker, they must ask the chair to ask the question on their behalf during the presentation, and the chair will only ask the question if the chair wishes to have an answer in order to undertake its consideration.
Before hearing from the public, I would ask Director Wilkinson to provide the background and explanation of the proposed bylaw.
Good morning. This proposed zoning changes from urban reserve to agriculture. This parcel is within the hamlet of Rochester with an existing farmstead on it. First reading of this bylaw was approved November 14th. Adjacent landowners, agencies, and title interest holders were notified of the public hearing today. Public hearing notification was also posted on the county's website and in the local paper. A new residence, as we've talked about before, urban reserve is very limited in developing for these landowners. Redistricting it to agriculture allows them to continue their current activities along with allowing for future development opportunities identified in the district. Redistricting it to agriculture is moving away from the potential of urban development. However, there has been very little growth in the hamlet over the last number of years. Thank you.
Does council have any questions or points of clarification they wish to ask the director? Councillor Holland. The floor is yours.
To build a home, is it discretionary use currently in the urban reserve?
No, to build a new home, it's not a use in urban reserve. The only residential type use in urban reserve is existing. So it's legal non-conforming basically. So if somebody wanted to build a new residence, they'd have to redistrict.
Any other questions? Seeing none. Are there any written materials that have been submitted, Director?
Yes, I have a couple of, so this first one is from the applicant. Basically, they're looking to build a second residence on the east side of Highway 661, a small homestead. Small self-sufficient haying operation along with some small animals, chickens, pigs, goats, and up to 5 cows. And so to build a new residence, they needed to go through this redistricting basically. And then I have a couple of responses from our information that we sent out to stakeholders. TELUS responded and said that they had no concerns with the proposed activities. Forestry and Parks has no concerns on the rezoning, and Forestry, or sorry, Fortis Alberta has no concerns. And that's concludes the written materials.
Is there any persons wishing to speak yet on Zoom or elsewhere? Does council have any questions or points of clarification? Councilor Mins, floor is yours.
They're looking at building on the east side of 661, you said, or?
That's what the email says, yeah.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that has questions, or Councillor Holland, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Does the whole parcel have to be redistricted or can it be split to remain with the northern portion of it as urban reserve and the southern portion agriculture?
The application is to redistrict the entire parcel.
I understand, but does it have to be?
Well, not necessarily. In the past, we've done partial redistrictings.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Council doesn't have other questions or points of clarification at this time. I got to ask you again, does council have any additional questions of any speaker or any of the staff? Seeing no hands wildly waving. Does anybody feel they've not been fairly heard? If no, there being no further testimony, I'll close the public hearing and further advise that council cannot receive any further information on this matter. Thank you for attending the public hearing. And declare the public hearing closed at 9:38 a.m. It'd be in order to have a motion to resume the special council meeting. Councillor Holland. All those in favor? Opposed? The count is 8-0 and the motion is adopted. And would declare the special council meeting adjourned at 9:39. Council meeting is scheduled to start at 10, and so given our historic practice of not starting early, grab a coffee. Good morning, it's 10 o'clock, and I'd like to call the December 12th County Council meeting to order. Ms. Blair, to begin with, I wanted to confirm that the handouts under number 6.6 and 8.6 will be appended to the package on the online version of the agenda. Like they'll be stuck on, attached. First item of business is the approval of the agenda. The items that I will go through the items that we need to discuss and then add others as you see fit. To begin with, I'd like to propose we swap the order of number 11 and 12 to just because of some timing. And then the items that must be discussed are 2.1, 5.1, 6.6, 6.7, all of number 7, so that's 7.1, 7.2, 7.3, 7.4, 7.5. 8.6, 9.1. 11.1 E, I'm sure Councillor Mins or I will have something there. 11.1 G, 11.1 J. Sorry, Councillor Holland, I assume you're going to speak to that. I still have a question related to the minutes, and then all of number 12 and 11. That's it, actually. Uh, 6.6, 6.7. Yeah. Are there other items you want to discuss? Councillor Hall, Cromwell?
Did you say 3.1 or not? I thought,
3.1, we need to delete 3.1. Sorry, good catch. It does say on my sheet, delete that. I just didn't highlight that. So far, Councillor Chanzik,
11.1 T and Y.
11.1 T and Y. Councillor Holland,
Thank you. 6.2. 6.3. 8.1.
6.2, 6.3, and 8.1.
Yes, please. Thank you.
8.4. Councillor Anderson asks 8.4. Others? So going through the list from the top. Councillor Pollock,
8.3.
8.3. Going through the list, I have 2.1, delete 3.1, 5.1, 6.2, 6.3, 6.6, 6.7, all of number 7. 8.1, 8.3, 8.4, 8.6, 9.1, 11.1 E, 11.1 G, 11.1 J, 11.1 P, 11.1 Y, and items number 12.1, 12.2, 12.3, and 12.4. CIO, did you have an item to add under number 10.1?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, we had 10.1. It's an item that'll be distributed feasibility project for a green municipal fund. We're looking for a resolution to support our application.
Okay.
And under 12.5, we have a section 24 FOIP presentation for you, advice from officials.
Okay, so that's 12.5, section 24, FOIP, advice from officials. And 10.1 feasibility on the Green Municipal Fund. Councilor Minns,
We'll approve the agenda.
you're gonna win the race for who's made the most motions just based on that. Any further items or clarifications required? On the question of the adoption of the agenda as amended, all those in favor? Opposed? The motion is adopted 9-0. We will just skip over 10.5.1. Councillor Holland, 6.2 is on page 31.
Thank you. I just actually had a question, and thank you very much for the report, the clarity and the information that you've provided. Does the same legal opinion, I guess, work with development permits as well? Is that the same sort of an idea with when it
Sorry,
comes?
just before you get going, do you want to make a motion, please?
Sure, I'll recommend that the council accept this report as information.
So Councillor Holland has made a motion to council accept this for information. Now, please go ahead with your questions.
Thank you. So yes, just curious about, through the chair to Director Wilkinson. Does the same idea apply to the development permitting authority? So when a development permit comes for an existing property that already has developments on it, are we able to check the compliance of the other developments? Is that?
Well, the legal opinion doesn't speak to that. But when somebody comes for a development, we certainly look at existing development on site and work with the applicant towards compliance.
Thank you very much.
Any additional comments? On this one, I noted that admin went above and beyond the motion of MPC, which was really just to get council directions, but it's timely because the note that I made is it's a reminder that about staying in, every board and body should be staying in their own lane between those two. So other questions, comments? Seeing none, the question of the adoption of the motion to the council accept this report as information. All those in favor? Opposed? The motion is adopted 9-0. Councillor Holland, you asked for 6.3 to come to the agenda. Do you want to move a motion?
To approve policy 2011 meal expenses for staff and county appointed members at large as presented.
Okay, Councillor Holland has moved the recommended motion. Do you have some comments you wanted to make?
Yes,
The floor is yours.
thank you. Just having a review of my notes. So basically this policy 2011 used to encompass the council as well as staff and county. So now it is strictly encompassing, by the look of it, the staff and county appointed members at large. In 3.3, it mentions eligible meals, staff or county appointed members at large may claim reasonable meal expenses. And I'm curious with regards to the word reasonable meal expenses. It's pretty gray. And who determines what is reasonable? I guess that would be a question for through the chair. to
CAO?
back.
Do you want to make an attempt to address that? That's on page 35 of your agenda. I mean, the policy does, to make reference to the claims being signed by an authorized signing authority as outlined in the purchasing policy. So ultimately, that's the approving party and they have to determine what's reasonable. But like they have to determine if they're willing to sign it or not, I suppose is part of the answer to that. But we can wait for the CAO's advice.
Mhm.
Mr. Chairman, yeah, since it isn't defined, there is absolutely a matter of interpretation. I think it'd probably be fair to say we'd probably use the guidelines established for council for the amounts established for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, as that would be our North Star to default to for deeming if something is reasonable.
If I may, thank you through the chair to CAO. I think that there's an option to choose if they're, at a swanky place. So that's just what I was curious as would that come through you as to consider as reasonable?
Mr. Chair, yes, it probably, we'd have to establish that, but it would not be unreasonable for someone to exceed those guidelines if they were at a special meeting and you happen to be in downtown Edmonton. You're probably going to exceed it. I've even seen some councils at RMA, rather than staying for other things, they go out to a restaurant in the area. And unfortunately, if you go to a restaurant in the area of where the RMA convention is, you're going to exceed those guidelines every time. And it's not even that fancy a meal. It's just more expensive. Maybe we do need a little bit of work in here to establish what that means is reasonable. In general, you don't want people to exceed that, though. Absolutely.
Right.
But are there occasions when it would be deemed acceptable? Yes, it would.
So with regards to the motion that we're to accept it as, are we able to add in 3.3? I'm not sure what the procedures are, but add 3.3 at the discretion of the CAO?
I think it's an option to amend it, although I think you would want to also be careful about creating an internal conflict in a policy where the part 2.1 says that it's based on the authorized signing authority. And then part 3.3 says at the discretion of the CAO, I think has the risk of creating a circular reference or something inconsistent internally. But I would ask, because this obviously is a concern, but do we really think that it's a concern that we're gonna have? Because there are a number of controls that are also in place, in terms of expenses getting paid, the CAO or the director of finance also signs checks and sees those things. And I wonder if this is a solution in search of a problem.
Well, in all honesty, if I may, anytime we have a policy that has a gray area in it, it creates issue. And for example, it also refers to going through the confusion that we had with the new rates that were set out in October's organizational meeting for policy 2009. We set the rates, but 2009 mentions that it's not in effect until January 1st. However, there was some confusion there. So for me, I'm very much, there was some confusion there. So very much I would like to see something be a little more stringent with regards to who decides what's reasonable. Because reasonable to one person is reasonable, some maybe not reasonable to someone else.
So would you like the wording to, you want to, I suppose, propose an amendment that the rates in excess of those authorized by policy are to be
2009.
approved by the CAO?
Mhm.
Sorry, I just want to look at where that,
We could put in 3.3, where meals, submission of a receipt except where meals are provided and approved by the CAO. Or as approved by the CAO.
and then if you submit a receipt for something less than the policy, then you're sending it to the CAO too.
No, this is just with regards to 3.3.
So what, just can you clarify for the table what you'd like it to say then?
So I would like to see, I'll try and word it, staff and or county appointed members at large may claim reasonable meal expenses, including a maximum 15% gratuity, which will be reimbursed upon submission of a receipt, except where meals are provided. Or so I guess it would be reimbursed upon submission of a receipt and approved by the CAO, except where meals are provided.
Would you want it to be where they exceed the guidelines of 2009? Because what you're really trying to solve is the high ones.
Well, in this one, it basically says you follow 2009, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, meals without receipts will be reimbursed at rates established as per policy 2009. So that's 5.1. So
But
that
if you,
covers that.
but your language then says if you come in with a $10 receipt, it overrides 2.1 and
Well, I guess we can look at it, but the way I see it, 3.3 is very similar to policy 2009, where we either claim reasonable amounts or we claim official amounts.
so say the amount again of the amendment, on submission of a receipt to be approved by the CAO.
Yes.
Notwithstanding part 2.1.
I'm sorry.
And then would you be willing to add notwithstanding 2.1? So that you're clear, there's the CAO overrules.
Thank you. Sure.
So the proposed amendment is after the word receipt to add the language to be approved by the CAO, notwithstanding 2.1. Is there any discussion on that amendment? Councillor Anderson?
Is this a formal amendment?
Yeah, I'd like to.
Just that we're splitting the original motion and the amendment? Thank you.
Other comments? Councillor Cromwell or Gerlich, Tanner? Okay. If there's no comments on the question of the amendment to add the language except to be approved by the CAO, notwithstanding item 2.1, all those in favor? 4, all those opposed? 5, the amendment is defeated on the original motion to approve the policy for the staff and county members at large as presented. All those in favor? Okay, opposed? Okay, the count is 5 and 4 and the motion is adopted. Item number 6.6, I actually see that our delegation looks like they're here. At least 2 of 3. Is Dennis here? Why don't we jump into that right away and go back to 5.1?
6.6, yeah. This one, pardon? Yeah, this is this one.
Good morning. It's nice to see you again. We are at item 4.5.1 on the agenda. And that's at pages 12 to 28. I think today, because we're trying to stay on track with time, we'll hold all council questions until all 3 of you have had a chance to talk, and then we'll open the floor for questions. Given that water's freshened for you, it's fine. We know each other well enough. I think we can skip over introductions. So why don't we just start with there you go. Sergeant Simpkins or Dennis?
Morning, everyone. Thanks for the invite. You all had the quarterly report, so it sounds like you're wanting to whiz through this, so we'll do what we can. What can I say about the summer months? We expected the worst and got the best. It was a nice summer. I know traffic and the sheriff's department and all the CPOs really helped me out. We had some transfers, so we lost some staff. Trying to accommodate everybody's holidays. It's pretty tough when you're reducing on your staff for the summer months. But we did well. Visibility on the lakes and some of the summer villages was our big key, as well as Wandering River with the ATV issues. I know Jason and his crew really helped us out up there. I think we had about 8 complaints over the whole summer, and it was with 2 individuals. So we were pretty happy about that. No fatalities, no bad accidents. Drinking and driving seemed to be down fairly well, despite the check stops with the sheriffs as well as the traffic services. Into the later part of summer, property crime was stemming up a little bit, especially in the Long Lake area. But we were able to lay some charges. So it was just a small group of individuals. So we've seen a little spike in that. We also had a meeting out there with the residents just on proactive property measures, what they can and cannot do, just so we were clear that nobody went overboard with catching somebody in the yard. And that was well received. Into the early fall, we were really proactive, trying to be highly visible in the school zones, just to get not really the enforcement hammer, but just to get people reminded, hey, it's that time of year again. Be very cognizant of your speed and the kids on the road, as well as the school buses. I know the sheriffs and traffic helped us out on that visibility front too. Lately, we're seeing about the same as last year, the amount of animal strikes we're getting. Not as many moose from what I can tell, which is good. But still several deer strikes. But I also attribute the speeds probably being a little higher with the nice roads, which we aren't used to, which is good and bad. So we're seeing also a little bit of, for some reason, I hope it's a one-off, but the last week we've had 3 impaired drivers with the help of traffic services as well, helping us on that. And that's coming in from driving complaints. So usually this time of year, people that are a little inebriated are in the ditch, but not this year. They're actually getting called in because they're staying on the road. Or we had one here actually collide with a semi, just bumped into the rear end of it. So we treat it as a collision, but when we get up there, we realize somebody's been drinking a little too much. And it's not your bar crowd, it's people coming and to and from days off on work. So we're gonna maybe try to brainstorm on that and maybe get a little bit more daytime checks coming with people transitioning to and from the Fort McMurray. Or not saying it's the residents up there, but the last 3 we had were people going to and from days off on work. And they happen to be drinking while they're driving, which is not something I'm used to the last couple of years. So we'll have a meeting with the traffic and Jason and some of the sheriffs and think if we can do some daytime checks, and I think that'll circumvent some of that as well. Staffing issues for us, just like everybody else, we have shortages that we're trying to transition through. New recruits started in the fall. We lost 2 in the summer. So slow to come in, fast to go out. We're due for another one transitioning out probably just after Christmas, but we have another one in the chute coming from Depot in January. So a little more growing pains towards summer, but my goal is to get everybody trained up, ready to go before the spring, summer months when we get busier. So I think it'll work out well. And like I said, the relationship with all the other enforcement agencies we have here is excellent. So I'm pretty sure going into summer, we're gonna have that partnership to help out with some of the vacancies on each other's sides. My admin staff, I lost our lead admin staff, but we did replace her with an in-house promotion. And then we also had a backfill right away from another admin staff, so I'm full on the admin side at least. Now we're gonna struggle to try and get back up to speed on the officer side. So going into early spring, that'll be my goal, is just to cover off the shortages and get back up to speed before the summer kicks in. Any questions?
We're gonna hold questions till we're
Sorry.
all done. Sergeant Simpkins.
Morning, thanks for the invite again. I have some stats to give you from basically the 1st of September and up until including yesterday. I will start off by saying that the enforcement objective for December for traffic services is impaired driving. And in 3 shifts, my unit has intercepted 5 impaired drivers within the county. We had National Impaired Driving Enforcement Day on December the 2nd. We intercepted 3 impaired drivers that night. December 6th, we had a complaint of an impaired driver on Highway 63 that was in the northbound, was heading northbound, nearly hitting people that were in the southbound lane. We happened to be just ahead of that vehicle doing a check stop with the sheriffs in Grassland, so we intercepted it, and the individual came back to the office and provided samples well over 2 times over the legal limit. So that's a criminal code charge for that individual. And just yesterday, we had another one just south on 63 at the county line, where a driver had passed out in somebody's driveway and blocked them from going to work. So that person received a few sanctions to do with impaired driving. And we're going to continue our enforcement, the traffic side of things for December for impaired driving. So we'll be out and about and in areas where we're not expected to be to see if we can intercept some more. And again, our focus is to reduce the fatal collisions, obviously, on the roadways. So that said, from September up until yesterday, we've had 1 criminal impaired driver, 4 IRS fails, which is somebody that's over 100 milligrams while operating a vehicle. We had 6 IRS cautions, which that's somebody's blood alcohol concentrations between 60 milligrams and 99. So they could be over the 0.08. We had 6 alcohol or cannabis infractions, so that's people that are transporting alcohol legally or cannabis not packaged properly. Within the county, 17 seatbelt tickets were issued, 10 distracted driving, so cell phone tickets. Speeds picked up a bit. We've had 178 speeders. And then we have 25 other infractions. That could be intersections or what have you. In total, in that time period, we've conducted 442 mandatory alcohol screenings on drivers. And we've executed 6 warrants within my unit. Again, we're probably over a half a dozen check stops a month, so we are out there. Me too, my unit's short staffed, so we're doing what we can to get out there with holidays and all that other thing playing into factors. So yeah, that's pretty much it for me. I would say that getting 5 impaired drivers and probably 3 shifts is a good thing, but it's not actually a good thing. That seems to have picked up for some reason, and I don't know why.
Thank you. Steph, sorry.
Good morning. So as everyone knows here, my detachment area here covers different jurisdictions as well. So I'll briefly touch on the full detachment overall, and then I'll go through some numbers specific to the county. So from the report, we saw during the summer months, we saw that 8% decrease in total criminal code offenses. With a property crime being a reduction of 3%. We did have some upticks of property crime in my northern part of my area here, not in the county. And we did, as Dennis and I was saying there about collisions, we are still seeing an increase in collisions, mostly animals in this time. And like he said, the speeds are still out there, and people are and the animals are a lot out there as well. So overall, we've seen some pretty good numbers coming down here from last year to this year, county-wide specifically. We've seen a 32% decrease in personal crimes, and property crime. We saw a 16% decrease in the amount of property crimes we've observed in the county. A lot of them are they're not really centered in one location. They're pretty much the full southern part of the from the Athabasca South down to Rochester area there. There's kind of spread out in those areas there. In the summer months, we ended up having it so far spread out that we spent some time in the county, and they've reduced down for this next quarter coming up to just specifically closer to Rochester area there. So we've got some action plans in place to dealing with that stuff there as well. So we're seeing some good trends though, definitely with the numbers coming down here. The number of occurrences that we had last year as compared to this year for the same time period, we did see 11% decrease in the overall files that we're seeing coming in to the detachment here. Can be a good thing, and if you look at it as that crimes are not happening or being prevented, but also can be that some people aren't reporting things to us because it might be a nuisance to them. So we're still dealing with the getting the message out there that the information is key. So how we can be effective in our jobs here. On to my staffing section here. We're down staff here again. We have my corporal, one of my corporals, Charles Dubois, is transferred out. He's on his house hunting trip right now to New Brunswick. I don't expect him to come back to be working in this detachment here. I have another member that's transferring out to our forensic section. His last day is tomorrow, so that drops me down. I just got back 2 of my members that were on recovering from surgery. They are administrative duties only, and as well as my other corporal in the office there, he's on administrative only duties. So we're down quite a bit in our staffing levels here, and I have no updates to give you on when I'm getting anybody new for that, other than the corporal. We've picked the corporal who's going to be, and he needs to sell his house and make the transfer up here. So we're looking forward to having him and getting that position filled here. So we're down a little bit staff, but we are seeing some good movement forward with that as well. Athabasca is starting to be a place that people want to start coming to. The last update I got on the number of people that applied for the Athabasca corporal job was 5. That's a lot of unheard of stuff. We usually get 1, sometimes none, apply to these detachments up here. So we're seeing a bit of a change there. So positive. We are still highly engaged in the community as much as possible. There with the summer months in the schools being closed, there wasn't a ton we were doing in the schools, obviously. But I can say that in September, we did the paint the car again. That's been a hit time and time again. Kids painted that up pretty good. One of my public servants in the office is a mentor for the youth in schools here. So she goes every single month to the school and mentors the youth in there. In July, we attended the Island Lake Bay Days, some enforcement in that area. It did some work with the community. There was a town hall done in August as well. The main focus on that one was property crime and how to prevent yourself from becoming a victim. This last October here, I'll just jump into a little bit to this quarter here because it was actually was pretty positive engagement here. So in October and Halloween, I sent one of my members and one of our public servants dressed in costumes to each and every school, and Rochester got a member and somebody dressed up in a pretty good costume there, and they broke into the classrooms and handed out candy and things like that. So really highly positive day for the kids there. We got some good feedback for that. As well from Remembrance Day, we had a member in Red Surge and a member in Not in Surge attend every single school to do their ceremonies, and Rochester observed that as well. So it's still pretty good involvement with the communities here. We are still looking at doing so as part of our annual performance plan. We were trying to get in schools to do some drug presentations. They know currently in Athabasca that they're done. Calling Lake has been done, I believe, and I think the county has to have the members go into schools and do the drug presentations here. So we're still working on that right now. So with I also forgot to mention that as of my public servant side of things, we have 4 in the office. They've allotted me 5. So we have another one coming on board in January here. Someone, I can't announce the name yet, but someone you may know from the community here. So they'll be taking that position up here in January to give us a hand there. Some good positive changes this coming up this new year here. So that's everything for me.
Thank you. As usual, I'm sure there's a few questions around the table. Councilor Cromwell, you want to start?
Thank you. I'm, as always, I thank you all very much for what you do. I have one very, very quick question in regards to Boyle. On Wednesday, December 6th, an alert went out via rave about high crime in the town of Boyle. Now, that's something we don't see very often, an alert speaking about a high level of crime. What can you say about that?
The only thing I can think of recent, we had 3 break-and enters, but they were insecure premises, all 3. And 2 of them were churches. So we're attributing it to a small group of youths who we've kind of given the stern warnings through some of the parents who we suspect might be governing these children. We don't have a lot of physical evidence to go after them, but for an example, one of the churches, they had went in and cooked some sausages. So that's not usual for us to have a high crime rate of somebody wanting some sausage, but so we're attributing it as kind of a one-off, but we were able to determine they weren't forced entries, so a lot of insecurity. So I think it's leaning towards a couple of the youths checking unlocked doors, and it was an opportunity. So as far as a high crime rate, I don't attribute it to anything that I'm too concerned about. But being a small village, we are very aware with the school who some of the problem players are that they share. And then we tend to monitor them after school. So we're doing some information sharing, but after we've kind of intervened with some stern talkings to some of the suspects, it seemed to have really dropped off for crime rate now. So, yeah.
Thank you very much.
Councilor Gerlich? Questions? Councilor Capitanet? Councilor Anderson? I was curious if the shortage of housing or the current housing situation impacts the ability for all of you to attract new members to your detachments.
I can say for us, it does. If we have members that are looking to rent in the community here, that the rentals are that we found are quite high for what they offer here, and I end up losing a member because of their inability to afford the rent in the area here. They end up having to be diverted to a different detachment here that was expected a replacement here. So yeah, the housing can be a factor here. So, well, specifically in the rental market.
Myself, same thing. It's a shortage of housing due to the area. Yeah, due to the area, but fortunately for now, we have a large apartment building in the village that seems to be able to absorb at least for that first 6 months until somebody can find something more suited that they want. Transition, sure. And yeah, if anybody that you know in the community that has maybe a seasonal property or something that they want rented out, definitely let us know. We'll get you a good candidate in there, or at least an option to.
I think it's worth complimenting the level of community involvement, especially this, notwithstanding the staff shortages that you've talked about. And, I noticed certainly the work of Constable McClenaghan with the rugby team and the mentorship that's happening there. And then the staff sergeant mentioned the drug presentations in the schools. I just wanted to make sure, had you been in contact with Rotary on their Don't Meth With Us program for complimentary offerings? So that's been a long running and well-received program.
No, I haven't personally been in contact with them. I leave it to the members to build their own program, build their own course. So if that's something that they can utilize, then I'll definitely let them know that that's available to them as well. Just want to comment, you mentioned that Constable McClenaghan there with the rugby. Just recently here, he received a Alberta Chiefs of Police Award certificate for his work in the community and for that rugby team creation. So it was great.
Councillor Wallach, Councillor Chansik, Holland.
Thank you. No questions, just again, gratitude. So thank you very much for all that you do and for especially those roads, the impaired drivers. I am also seeing a high level of stress amongst people, not only, with income issues, but as well as our high rates out there of what everything is costing. So appreciate staying on top of some of those things. Thank you very much.
Councillor Mintz.
Yeah, thank you for all the great work. If I read right in the email, there was a safe exchange spot put into Athabasca. And I want to commend you on doing that. I think that's a great idea.
Appreciate that. I wish I could take the credit for it, but it's been there since I've been here at this detachment here for the last couple of years. I don't know when they put it in there, but one of the things that the division wanted to do was just put that out and make that available to everybody at every detachment if possible, if the space was allotted. We already had it, so we pushed forward with the notifications to the community there. So yeah, it's a great tool for sure.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Is there one in Boyle by chance? The safe exchange spot for?
No, there isn't, but I'm waiting for the signage and everything that's supposed to be distributed to me. And yeah, we only got one parking lot, so we'll make do.
So it's coming.
Thank you.
That's appreciate you coming in today. And as always, time is valuable, and it's valuable to us that you take a few minutes and spend it with us this morning. And I know, you've got travel and time off the roads. So especially now, thank you for being here. Council, let's take a 7-minute recess, coming back at 1:45, and then we'll come back. The council meeting is 11:45. The handouts you just got is number 10.1, so we'll just set that aside because we are about to move on to 6.6. This is on your agenda because the paper was not included in the original distribution of documents. Is there anybody willing to move the recommended motion? Councillor Wallach.
Yeah, I'd like to move the recommended motion, please.
Okay, Councillor Wallach has moved the recommended motion that council amend the projects to be included in the NRED to include the upgrade and renovation to the Baptiste campground and day use in the summer village of West Baptiste. The replacement of various campground facilities, including outhouses, and the replacement or upgrade of the tennis court at Whitegull. Is there any discussion on that? Councillor Holland, actually first, Councillor Wallach. The mover, do you want to? Councillor Holland, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Just wanted to double check because my memory is not serving me well. The initial application was for the cell phone broadband feasibility study. What was the second item?
Campgrounds. It was related to campgrounds as well.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, it was basically a 10-year plan to upgrade all the campgrounds. It was a life cycle assessment and upgrading plan.
Thank you. Thank you. I just needed that information. And so just to confirm that these are an addition to those two items. Correct. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, on the question of the adoption of the motion to recommend the NRED grant be amended to include the projects listed, all those in favor? Opposed? The count is 9-0 and the motion is adopted. 6.7. I think I added that because the motion needed a touch of clarity. Councillor Anderson, you talked to me. Do you want to move a motion?
Yeah, I'd like to move to approve the funding request of up to $12,600 from the 2023 budget, subject to a matching contribution from the town of Athabasca.
So the motion is to authorize a donation to approve the funding request to the teen center of up to 12,600 from the 2023 budget, subject to a matching contribution from the town of Athabasca. Discussion. Councillor Anderson, do you want any discussion before I open the floor? No. Councillor Holland, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I'd like to split that question to have one portion of the motion be the funds coming out of the 2023 budget, and then the second motion with regards to the subject to the matching contribution.
Other discussion? Seeing none, on the question of the adoption of the motion to make the contribution from the county subject to a matching contribution from the town of Athabasca, all those in favor? Oh, sorry. You get the last word? Gotta wait more carefully.
I would argue that because the motion is to approve funding up to a certain amount contingent on the matching, that you wouldn't be able to split that question because it's not two separate questions. Also, this is what was voted on and approved at committee. The question was split there to combine to make this motion.
I can agree with that interpretation. Councillor Holland, comment?
Yes, thank you. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, we can take this motion and make it into two as requested for a split. The reason why I'm asking for this is because even though we had this conversation in the committee of the whole, it still gives us the opportunity at the council table to have further discussion, further conversation, and also have had time to reflect between the two meetings. I am not in support of subject to a matching contribution up to 12.6 because of the fact that we shouldn't be, I guess, mixing our budget, how we're able to offer the 12.6 and another budget that may not be able to offer that 12.6. And as it was mentioned at the COW, that will put pressure on this will be a way we can up this 12.6 amount to get up to that 12.6 amount. And I don't believe that's pressuring anybody to dive into their budget deeper if they don't have it to begin with. So I fully believe that this should be a split question.
I think, to me, in my view, because the motion is, if you split it, you'll end up with a motion that says of up to 12,600. That doesn't really provide any clarity for, for admin. Because it's what number are we asking for? They're intricately connected. So I think splitting it doesn't actually make sense. And so given that, is there further discussion from anyone who hasn't had the floor? You've spoken, Councillor Mins, you're leaning up to the mic. Oh. Finding that optimal focal distance, hey? Councillor Chamzuk. Councillor Cromwell,
Make a motion to,
there's a
Um,
motion on the floor.
I make an amendment to the motion
Then you need to say
to
amendment.
approve the funding request of 12,600 from the 2023 budget.
That's a contrary motion, I think, Councillor.
I don't believe it is. You're taking out the word of up to and giving it a finite total.
Okay, would you repeat the motion, please?
Approve the funding request of 12,600 from the 2023 budget. Then it was already split, subject to a matching contribution from the town.
So Councillor Cromwell's motion is to approve the funding request of up to 12,600 from the 2023 budget. And sorry, to delete the other words.
I'm simply amending the first part of the split. How it used to read, approve the funding request of up to 12,600 from the
So
2023
you're actually
budget.
asking just to delete the words up to.
Delete the words up to. That is my amendment.
Okay,
Approve the funding
then
request of.
Thank you. So Councillor Cromwell has made an amendment to propose we delete the words of up to 12,600. And then to propose a split after that. Any further discussion? Councillor Holland?
In that amendment, so I just for clarity, you're still looking at the subject to the matching,
Well, we'll vote first on the amendment and then we can split after.
right? But I'm asking if was his intention, if that's what we're looking at. You're still satisfied with up to, or pardon me, the subject to matching.
Through the chair to Councillor Holland. As it was a split question already, I've just amended the first portion.
I believe, if I may,
We're making this extra complicated, but go ahead.
well, we
No, go
all
ahead.
have an opportunity. Because I don't believe that the argument that you gave that it can't be split was valid. So we're not splitting the question, Councillor Cromwell, so I just want to make sure that your amendment understands that the question is not being split.
Well, the argument would change subject to the approval of the amendment. On the question of the adoption of the amendment to delete the words up to 12,600 from the motion which previously read to authorize a donation to the Athabasca Teen Center of up to 12,600 from the 2023 budget, subject to a matching contribution from the town of Athabasca. All those in favor? Opposed? The count will be 8-1. So the motion on the floor is to authorize a donation of the teen center of up to 12,600 from the 2023 budget, subject to a matching contribution from the town of Athabasca. Are we all clear on that motion? Councillor Gerlich? You just voted against the amendment to delete the words up to. So the motion on the floor is to authorize a donation to the Athabasca Teen Center of up to 12,600 from the 2023 budget, subject to a matching contribution from the town of Athabasca, as was recommended by the Budget and Finance Committee. Councillor Mins, you got something on your mind?
Did we split that?
I don't think you can split it
Oh,
because
okay,
it makes the
okay.
motion on,
Oh, okay, I'm just trying to catch up here. Right on.
okay. Are you ready for the question? On the question of the adoption of the motion to authorize a donation to the Athabasca Teen Center of up to 12,600 from the 2023 budget, subject to the matching contribution from the town of Athabasca. All those in favor? Opposed? 6 and 3, and the motion is adopted. The next item of business is item 7.1. The public hearing on this bylaw was held earlier this morning. Is anyone willing to open discussion by moving second reading? Councillor Mins has moved second reading of bylaw 013-2023. Is there any discussion? Councillor Holland, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I have a concern with regards to one person's dream or wish to make changes in our urban reserve for adding livestock in a hamlet. I struggle with that. I believe that if we have the capability of a partial, we would leave a partial rezoning, that we would leave the urban reserve around the hamlet intact as much as possible and bring the southern portion of the property into agricultural to still satisfy what it is that the applicant is looking for. So I believe that our urban reserves, I mean, they're not something that's it offers residents, I guess, economic opportunities that are generally not found in remote locations. And so to remove them, I struggle with doing that and can't support it.
Other discussion? Okay, on the question of the adoption of second reading of bylaws 013-2023, all those in favor? Opposed? Sorry, Councillor Cromwell, which way did you vote?
In favor.
Could you put your hand up then, please? The count is 8 and 1, and the second reading is adopted. Is anyone willing to move third reading of this bylaw? Councillor Kapitanek. Discussion on the motion to move third reading of bylaw 013-2023. Seeing none, if you're ready for the question is on the adoption of the motion to move third reading of 013-2023. All those in favor? Opposed? The count is 8 and 1, and third reading is adopted. The next item of business is 7.2. This is bylaw 015-2023, the fire services bylaw. Is there anyone willing to move second reading? Councillor Wallach, sorry. You and Kelly were kind of. Councillor Wallach has moved second reading of fire services bylaw 015-2023. Is there any further discussion? Chief, do you want to?
Mr. Chair, if I may address the committee, during our quality control checks, there is one minor amendment we need to make to the bylaw before that we proceed with any further readings. On page 71 of your agenda, 13.8.1, there was an attempt to put some clarification around false alarms, but it turns out that it's an incomplete sentence that just needs to be struck from the bylaw before further readings. 13.8.1 on page 71. It states false alarms resulting from unintentional activation of an alarm system shall. They shall, so.
Councillor Chamzak, are you willing to move an amendment to the bylaw to delete line 13.8.1? Okay. Councillor Chamzak has moved an amendment to the bylaw to delete item 13.8.1 on page 71 of your agenda. Is there any discussion on that? Has everybody had a chance to see it? Given that there appears to be no discussion, if you're ready for the question on the adoption of the amendment to the bylaw to delete 13.8.1, all those in favor? Opposed? The count is 9 and 0, and that amendment is adopted. On the motion to adopt second reading of the bylaw, is there any further discussion? If you're, Councillor Cromwell, the floor is yours.
You know, I apologize. I left my previous notes on my desk, but I don't see a lot of changes in here based on our first discussion. and nothing in red, what changes were made to this bylaw?
Those came to the last council meeting and they were in the bylaw that was presented for first reading.
Okay, well, I'm still unhappy with how this bylaw reads and I cannot support it.
Other discussion? Seeing none, if you're ready for the question is on the adoption of the motion to approve second reading of 0152023 as amended. All those in favor? Opposed? The count is 8-1 and second reading is adopted. Is there any desire to go to third reading? Councillor Minns so moves. On the question, discussion on third reading of bylaw 0152023. Seeing any I want to go too fast. Seeing none, if you're ready for the question is on the adoption of third reading of bylaw 0152023. All those in favor? Opposed? The count is 8-1 and the motion and third reading is adopted. Bylaw 0162, number 7.3 is bylaw 0162023. That is code of conduct bylaw. We are here for second reading. Is anyone willing to move second reading? Councillor Chamzik has moved. On the question of second reading of the code of conduct bylaw, we've been over this many times and for many months, but is there any additional discussion? Councillor Holland, your hand is up.
Thank you. So we had asked for a few amendments to come through, and this is the first time that I'm reading the definition for electronic signature on page 86, item 1, VII. And it mentions, for the purpose of this bylaw, must include the full name of the complainant within the email. I propose that actual definition read more of an electronic signature is a text typed full name of the complainant that shall appear after the ending phrase of an email.
So you're proposing an amendment?
Yes,
Can you submit that in writing, please, to Leah so that she can type it?
sure. Do you need that now?
Yes, so that we can have it reread to us. Depends what your name is. Ms. Blair, are you, did you get that typed? So there's an amendment on the floor. I'm going to ask the recording secretary to read it to us.
Moved by Councillor Holland to amend item 1, VII electronic signature to is defined as the text typed full name of complainant that shall appear after the ending phrase of an email.
So there's an amendment on the floor. Any discussion? Councillor, don't put your mic off.
Oh, I'm sorry. Nope.
Councillor Capitano.
Through the chair, how would you define full name?
Would you
Councillor
like
Holland,
to
you
put
want to answer that?
legal full name if you would like to have it further defined?
As in, are you requiring middle names, prefaces, like if they're professional?
This was a definition that I had obtained online. So it would be up to council how you would like to define what full name is.
Follow up. I would like to define full name, so there's no gray area. Thank you.
Do you want to, how do you want to define that?
Their legal name?
I would like to, yeah, hear from from my colleague making the amendment, what that definition should look like. And if the legal name needs to include middle name, that it be very specified, because I would hate to see someone come with their legal name, not with their middle name, and then having that argued that that's not their full legal name. Gray area.
Councillor Chamzik, the floor is yours.
And I agree with that because I know of individuals that have two middle names and only choose to go by one or so on and so forth. It does leave grayness for me as well.
Councillor Cromwell, the floor is yours.
Amendment to the amendment, the text typed full name bracket first and last bracket of the complainant. Then as continued on in the original amendment.
Councillor Cromwell has moved an amendment to include the words first and last in brackets after, I think, the language full name. Discussion. Just 1 second, I actually want to. Okay, Councillor Kapitanek,
I'm just satisfied to have a definition. Thank you.
Councillor, anybody else? I'm going to say that I think that we're getting into a splitting of hairs over something that is fairly clear to begin with, and we're too narrowly defining something that we've been able to deal with already, and so I'd be opposed to both the subsequent amendment and the original amendment. You know, whether you send an email and identify yourself in the first line or the last line is completely irrelevant. It's technical hair splitting to try to be able to exclude things because they identify themselves as in the hello, my name is, I'm writing about, versus yours truly, my name is. And so we're overcomplicating something that is not that complicated. So I'm opposed to both those amendments. Now, final word firstly to Councillor Cromwell before we call a question on that amendment. Do you want it?
You know, Chair, it could be much more simplified actually but I think that would be a competing motion. So I might have to make a motion after we're done.
On the question of the adoption of the amendment to include in brackets the word first and last name, all those in favor? Opposed? The count is 7 and 2 and the amendment is carried. On the question of the, on the adoption of the amendment, which would now read, I'm going to get Ms. Blair because I didn't write it down. You repeat it for council and then we'll open the floor to discussion before we call it. Vote.
Moved by Counselor Holland to amend the motion to revise item 1.0. BII electronic signature is defined as the text typed full name of the complainant that shall appear after the ending phrase of an email.
Okay, discussion on that amendment. Councilor Cromwell, floor is yours.
Just a point of clarification through the chair to the recording secretary that now reads the text type full name bracket first and last. As with the past amendment.
Yep,
correct?
Correct. Sorry, I missed that. But good catch. Thank you. The amendment inserts that in there. Further discussion from the floor? Again, I'm going to say that we've had this already viewed by our legal counsel and I object to us inserting our own I found it online definitions when our legal counsel has already viewed this document and we've been over it again for months. Is there any further discussion or closing words? Nope. Councillor Holland, the floor is yours.
Just so we don't miss it there, I do have a couple more amendments after this.
Okay. On the question of the adoption of the amendment as read by Ms. Blair, all those in favor? Opposed? The count is 4 and 5 and the amendment is defeated. Is there other, so we've had, actually, hang on. We've had first reading passed, we've had second reading passed. Sorry, we've had a motion to move second reading. And I think we have exhausted the amendments on second reading. So we can do that at third reading, if you want to propose them. On the question of the adoption, the motion to move second reading of the council code of conduct, is there any further discussion? Seeing none, Councillor Jamzik, you deep in thought. Okay. The question, the option, the motion to move second reading of 0162023, all those in favor? Opposed? Councillor Gerlach, I didn't see which way you voted. You're in favor, okay, so we are 7-2 and the second reading is adopted. Is someone willing to move third reading? Councillor Kapitanek has moved third reading of 0162023. Councillor Holland, you've got some amendments.
Thank you.
Say them slow and I'll try to keep up with writing them down.
As we know, this bylaw continues to come back to us for revisions. So I don't feel bad whatsoever in making sure that it's been reviewed over and over again to make sure that it suits this council. On page 92, 17.1C. If the complainant is properly received under this bylaw, so that's the opening statement. When we get down to I'll just read it. If the complaint is properly received under this bylaw and the facts as reported include the name of one or more members who are alleged to be responsible for the breach of this bylaw, the member or members concerned shall, upon its receipt is what I would like to add, receive a copy of the complaint and then leave everything else as the same. So between when it says of this bylaw, comma, the member or members concerned shall, upon its receipt, receive a copy of the complaint. And there's one more amendment. If
Just
I
hold on one
may.
second. Okay, the last amendment that I would like to make would be 17.1D, where it says on receipt of a complaint, the complaint shall be provided to the investigator. Because council has to designate the investigator, I would like to read, once an investigator is designated by council, the complaint shall be provided to the investigator and the investigator will complete an initial assessment. sorry, so
Sure. So if we could remove the words on receipt of a complaint and replace it with once an investigator is designated by council, the complaint shall be provided to the investigator and the investigator will complete an initial assessment.
so basically, we're deleting the words on receipt and inserting the words once an investigator is designated. Is that correct?
On receipt of a complaint is removed.
No.
It's once an investigator is designated by council, the complaint shall be provided to the investigator.
Okay, there's been two amendments proposed, 17.1 in reverse order, just because we're on that page, 17.1D to delete the words on receipt of a complaint and replace them with once an investigator is designated by council. And 17.1C, in the middle of that paragraph where the member or members concerned shall, and then insert the words upon its receipt, receive a copy of the complaint. Councillor Anderson.
Thank you. We discussed these, the wording of both of these at previous committee meetings, and that's why we amended the definition of investigator. So investigator means the individual or body retained or otherwise designated by council to investigate the report on a complaint under this bylaw. The investigator shall, by default, be council, unless another individual or body is retained or otherwise designated by council. The investigator shall not be the CAO. And we did that so that the complaint would be distributed to council by default. And then if council decides that we want to appoint a third-party investigator, then it will be distributed to them. but by default, it should always be distributed to council first. Otherwise, how do we determine if we need a third-party investigator or not? So I am opposed to the amendments being proposed.
Other discussion? I'll just slow this one down to give everybody a minute or two to read that and think about it. Councillor Holland, you've made the motion, so I'm not going to give you the floor until, except we're not. Any further discussion? Councillor Cromwell, the floor is yours.
Yeah, give me one moment here, please. I'm just trying to find something. Maybe you can help educate me, Reeve. I'm trying to find where in our procedural bylaw we're limited to two amendments.
Sorry, are we talking about this particular motion or are you wanting to contradict something from the past?
Well, we're talking about this. You said we can only, you cut us off after two amendments for
Yes.
second reading. Where is that in our procedural bylaw?
You can make an amendment and you can make an amendment to the amendment. There's a motion to move second reading. So you've got a main motion, you've got an amendment, you've got an amendment to the amendment. That's it.
So just for my clarification then, by pushing a motion first, you are limiting our ability to actually talk and discuss through an item.
I
Based on
resent
pre-
that you've
procedural
accused me
bylaw.
of limiting that.
I am not, I'm asking a question.
You've used the words you are limiting and you're out of order. This has been in front of council for 8 months and there has been ample opportunity for council to discuss it at committee, at first reading, at second reading. And the bylaw is the bylaw of council and it's my job to follow the bylaw to the best that I am able. So if you have something to add to third reading and the discussion on it, you're welcome. Otherwise, your comments are out of order in this moment. Is there further comments that are relevant to the question in front of us? Councilor Mintz.
Yeah, I'm gonna go back to the formal complaint process. So let's say out of the blue, all of a sudden, I have a complaint or somebody sends in a complaint regarding one of the council members. And it says in here that it goes to the Reeve, and then from the Reeve, it goes to the investigator.
Which is council by default.
Okay, so can we actually
This is-
put that in there? Because I think that's
That's to the investigator designate. That's.
yeah, can we just say it goes to council? Because it's gotta come to council before it even like goes, before we even say investigator. I would rather just say council as a whole. And then council designates it to go to investigator after that.
I think the function of that is what happens. So like if a complaint lands, presumably it would, either be by email or electronically. Once understanding that it's a complaint, it would just be added to a council agenda for presentation to council, because the council is the like the mechanics of it would be that it would be forwarded to the investigator, and that is council in the beginning, unless we designate somebody else.
But I think that's
Councilor
where we're
Mintz has the
getting
floor, but I recognize you, Councilor Hall.
these. I think that's where we're getting these splitting hairs all the time, is it's not designated as council, it's designated as an investigator. And then all of a sudden, like, is it going to an investigator? Or is it going to council?
I think in the beginning, the investigator means the individual or body retained or otherwise designated by council shall by default be council unless another individual is retained or otherwise. So the definition there that we've been talking about is they're forwarded to, initially that means it will come to council unless council has, like at some later time, said, no, we're always going to use I don't know, a third.
But is
party.
that getting in the way of this amendment? Is that where we're
I
getting
don't-
the
I don't think so.
misplacement of the investigator? I don't know. I
'Cause you're-
just
you're
thought I'd
talking
bring it
about-
up.
You're talking about 17.1B, just
Mhm.
Counselor Holland?
Yeah, that's where I'm talking about that. It says read to be forwarded to the investigator designated by council.
Right.
So it's like we've already designated an investigator.
The council has, through the bylaw, designated itself the investigator.
Okay, so can we take investigator out and just say to council? Does it or not? Because that's the biggest thing.
I think you're like either way, I think the result is the same.
Well, it is, but I'm just trying to find an easier way to.
Because the amendments are affecting part C and part D. Counselor Holland, did you want to add
Yeah,
some
maybe
clarity in
we
that?
got black here on it.
Well, it's just, the reason why, I'm recommending once an investigator is designated by council is because in 17.1B, it does mention all complaints shall be forwarded to the Reeve to be forwarded to the investigator designated by council. I realize that we have a definition, I don't have it handy, do I have it? Here we go, on page 87, which is one XI, or IX, pardon me. It does define exactly as you had mentioned. However, when we go further in to this document, we are specifying all complaints shall be forwarded to the Reeve to be forwarded to the investigator designated by council. So again, when I go down to D, on receipt of a complaint, the complaint shall be provided to the investigator and the investigator will complete an initial assessment.
And in that case, the investigator is council.
Okay. But why would we be specifying to the, in 17.1B, forwarded to the investigator designated by council? Because,
I think
I mean-
council has designated itself the investigator. though,
Right.
Like I.
so
I'm
this
not
is
sure
what's
whether-
causing issue. The words in 17.1B is mentioning designated by council. That's what's, we're specifying it there. If that's the case, then we need to remove to the investigator, we need to remove in 17.1B designated by council. And leave 17.1D as it sits, but it's causing some confusion.
So you think we should remove the 3 words on the second line designated by council?
Right, in 17.1B, if that would satisfy, then that would satisfy 17.1D.
Counselor Mins, is that the amendment you want to make?
Perfect. I'm good with that amendment because it just, to me, it just it clarifies that council's the investigator
Right.
at that point in time.
Right. So then we can remove the amendment request for 17D.
Okay, that's on the floor, so you should just recommend we defeat it. So we'll split that one.
Thank
because It's 2 distinct propositions. If that would be satisfactory to you, that we can make that work. So Counselor Mins has moved that under 17.1B, the words in the second line designated by council be deleted. Is there any further discussion on that? Seeing none on the question, if you're ready for the question, then on the question of the adoption of the motion to delete the words of the designated by council from 17.1B, all those in favor? Opposed? 3, so we are 6 and 3. And the amendment is, that amendment is adopted. The the first amendment was in 2 parts that are distinct. There was the request to delete the words on receipt of a complaint and add once an investigator is designated by council at the beginning of 17.1D. The mover has spoken against that. Is there any further discussion on that one? Councillor Hall, and this is your opportunity to say you don't want that.
Yes, like the amendment that was just made satisfies 17D now to be left as is.
I'd also
Yeah,
speak
we'll
against
leave it
that
second.
amendment around 17.1D. Any further discussion? On the question of the adoption of part of the amendment to delete the words on receipt of complaint and add once investigator is designated by council, all those in favor? Opposed? Count is 0 and 9, and that portion is defeated. On the residual portion of that amendment, under 17.1C, discussion around adding the words upon its receipt after the word shall. Is there any further discussion? I'm going to speak against that motion, that amendment, because specifically it contradicts the later part of that paragraph. When there is a complaint is received, the member or members concerned are already it already defines how they get a copy of that complaint, and that's if an investigation proceeds, not if it doesn't. And so I think it creates an internal conflict in part C, and we should reject that. Is there further discussion? Councillor Holland, well, okay, you moved it, so is there any discussion? Councillor Holland, final word.
Thank you. So for clarity, you're saying that if there isn't an investigation, the complaint just goes to the REIB and then
It goes to council.
goes to council.
I mean, the way this is worded, it goes to council. And it's dispensed with as if an investigation proceeds. The way it's worded, it looks like the member concerned receives a copy. And if there's no investigation, they don't. They see it as a council. Yep. They see it in council.
I guess for me, this seeing it in council usually would be enclosed. You're not able to keep that document. When a complaint is made against a member, they should have an opportunity to have a copy of that document. Even if there isn't an investigation, it is referring to that particular person, they should have a copy of that information. So I will ask for that to be passed, please.
Okay, on the question of the adoption of the amendment to insert the words upon its receipt after the word shall, all those in favor? Opposed? The motion is 5 and 4. And that amendment is carried. Now we've created a situation where the bylaw is internally inconsistent. Would it be reasonable to refer this to our council to have a look at that to make sure we haven't just created a problem? To refer it off to legal? Yeah. Will you move that? Councillor Kapitanek has made a motion to refer this to legal counsel to table it, to refer it. So I think it's to refer to legal counsel to look at the effect of that amendment. Motion to refer is a non-debatable motion. All those in favor? Opposed? The count is 6 and 3, and this is referred to legal counsel too. And the other motion on the floor remains on the floor for a future meeting. Does anybody need a break?
Not a break, but clarity. What other motion remains on the floor?
The motion to move third reading.
Thank you.
So third reading can't go. No breaks? Let's take. Do we want a break, or lunch is coming probably in the next 15 minutes, eh? When we get there, we're a long way from that on the agenda. Okay. Can I get us back to one discussion? Item number 7.4 is procedural bylaw. Is anyone willing to move first reading? Councillor Holland?
Actually, I'd like to make a motion rather than give first reading.
Okay.
I would like to make a motion to direct administration to draft a committee of the whole meeting policy under internal council operations, similar to policy 8105 of the Budget and Finance Committee and 8120 Policy
Slow
Review
down.
Committee. Sorry,
Can you start at the beginning and say it again?
sure. To direct administration to draft a committee of the whole meeting policy under internal council operations, similar to policy 8105 Budget and Finance Committee and 8120 Policy Review Committee that were recently amended under resolution CC 23-654 to appoint the chair and vice chair at the organizational meeting and bring the draft policy to the next policy review meeting. Sorry, take this. Do you want this?
So is a motion proposed to direct administration to draft a committee of the whole policy under internal council operations, similar to 8105 and 8120 that were recently amended to appoint the chair and vice chair at the org meeting and to bring to the next policy review meeting. Is the motion on the floor? Discussion. Councillor Anderson.
I believe this, a specific policy related to committee of the whole is not required. We've already written it into our procedural bylaw intentionally when we got rid of Public Works and then created the committee of the whole. So that it was under bylaw and not just simply under policy. So I think that keeping it under the procedural bylaw is the way to go.
Further discussion? Councillor Chenzik, the floor is yours.
My concern is when I look at this is when we talk about our democratic right to be able to vote. I feel that it's very important. I feel that we have a very great chair right now, and I have absolutely no issues with that. But when I think about the future and future councils, I just feel very strongly in the component of the way things are, I feel should be done.
Further discussion, Councillor Cromwell, your hands on the mic.
Just reading the procedural bylaw, page number 4, point number 6, there's nothing written in the procedural bylaw about the selection of chair, so I believe that what Councillor Holland is proposing is a wonderful solution.
For clarity, there's an amendment in front of you to the procedural bylaw. That was the recommended motion by administration. Other comments? Councillor Holland, you've moved it. You're last. One of the things we've talked about regularly is this call of the chair and trying to create more order to our meetings and predictability. And so I think I would speak in opposition to the proposed motion in favor of the draft bylaw, because I think it creates a clarity around the timing of the meetings and streamlines our operations to something that's predictable for both administration, our council, and future councils. And I mean, you do have the ability to select the chair of the committee of the whole. All of council has that ability when you appoint the deputy reeve. So I don't see there being a conflict in terms of in terms of the democratic ability to pick who chairs that committee. So that's that. So we've had Councillor Kapitanek or Gerlich haven't spoken, Wallach or Mins. Do you have a comment? Councillor Kapitanek.
mean, I hate to repeat what's been said, but I think simplifying the process is never a poor thing, especially for future councils. The more work we do for them now, the simpler it will be in the future.
Council Mins, Council Wallach? No comment? Council Mins, floor is yours.
I guess, yeah, simplifying the process, whether you vote people in or you vote 'em- or it gets put in writing, it's simple. Both ways are simple. It's not a big thing. I guess through the chair to Councillor Anderson, are you talking about the 6.6 being wrote in? Cause I don't remember I don't know how the public works meetings used to be, whether it was their Deputy Reeve and Reeve or how it was.
It was voted just at the.
It was voted just like the rest. So what you're discussing is the bullet point on, or the red line on 6.6, just the meeting dates.
Leaving it as is.
Councillor Holland, you want to put your mic on or?
I understand that Councillor Anderson meant that she would like to leave agenda item on agenda item 7.4 6.2 as it was recommended by administration and read that the Deputy Reeve will chair Committee of the Whole. Is that accurate?
But we're talking specifically about the motion proposed, not about the draft bylaw that's in front of us. So the motion in front of us is to create a new policy to govern Committee of the Whole that somehow would work in conjunction with a Committee of the Whole that's already baked into the bylaw.
But it was reflected to Public Works.
I'm
The
sorry?
old Public Works, it was reflected to the old Public Works
you wanna
Committee. I
clarify your
wondered, I
comments,
was just
Councillor?
wondering what's reflected to the Public Works Committee.
For clarity, the motion on the floor is to create a policy separate of the procedural bylaw that will govern Committee of the Whole. Previously, council amended our procedural bylaw to add a section 6.0, Committee of the Whole, to govern that committee. I believe that keeping the section in the procedural bylaw is more appropriate than creating a policy to govern Committee of the Whole.
Okay, so we got nothing reflecting Public Works. Okay, perfect. That's where I was going. You had mentioned Public Works. And I was wondering where Public Works Committee was even in here, but
Councillor Holland, we've been around once. Do you want to go a final word?
Yes,
Like,
please.
I don't know that this is that complicated to go twice. Unless,
Well, it is a little bit disturbing to me that we have council committees that are, we appoint the chair and the vice chair for our other council committees. Why we would all of a sudden not do the same for the chair committee. So I was, looking in different policies, and of course, we already have the policies that exist for budget and finance, which is a council committee. We have this policy that exists for policy review, which is a council committee, that it would make sense that the Committee of the Whole have also its own policy for consistency. We mention in this procedural bylaw other organizational meetings, we mention all of those things as well. So it's not just strictly for the Committee of the Whole. We also have a policy that I can't say it any better than what it says in the policy. The county also recognizes that the membership, and I would add positions on boards and committees, should not be dominated by any individuals, nor should people be tasked with serving for long periods of time. And so I am wholeheartedly think that we need consistency here for all council committees. We do need to protect our democratic rights in deciding who is going to chair and vice chair those committees. And I think we've made it very clear in previous policies that the county also recognizes that.
on the question, so Council Holland has had the final word as the mover of the motion on the question of the adoption. Sorry, CAO, do you want to speak to this before I call?
Mr. Chair, I'd be happy to. Essentially, this amendment I'm recommending, and you don't have to go with it, but it's really based on, as you will learn from me, I base it on how the rest of the counties try to operate in the province, and I copy a lot of their processes. this is consistent with how a lot of other counties do it. And so we've only included one example, and that was page 110 and 111. That's from the Hill County procedural bylaw. I guess I could bring back a bunch more that show this is kind of usual. And the other thing that's kind of usual is when people started bringing in committee of the whole, they did away with the other committees. And they're trying to capture the work that other committees were done as one committee of council instead of having additional separate committees. And it was 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. You're still doing the same amount of work, but you're doing it at a committee of the whole meeting instead of budget, finance, and policy review. I know that's not the case here. You like your separate committees as well. That's why you probably need a separate policy for those committees. I would encourage you over time to look at whether or not we need those committees, or whether or not we can just do with 2 council meetings and a committee of the whole meeting. But that's a separate issue that I'll bring back to you in the future. But this is based on what is normal in many other places. That's all. And it doesn't need to be what we do here. That's why we recommended it.
So the motion was to direct administration to draft a committee of the whole policy to, I think the reference is to be housed under internal council operations section of the storage, similar to policies 8105 for budget and finance and 8120 that were recently amended, that specifically to appoint the chair and the vice chair at the organizational meeting, and to bring this to the next policy review meeting. Does everybody understand that motion? CIO, do you want to?
Mr. Chairman, I don't believe you can have a policy that overrides what your bylaw says. So you have a bylaw that deals with council and committee of the whole. The place for such an amendment, if you wanted to have the election, would be, I believe it would be in the procedural bylaw. If you want us to get a legal interpretation of that, I'm happy to, but I don't believe a policy can direct otherwise what a bylaw should be directing if it's referenced in the bylaw.
So Counselor, we are circled once on this with having given Counselor Holland the last word. Is there any objection at the table to going around one more time before we call the question, given that there seems to be some? Is there any objection at the table to going around again? Okay, so there is objection. So in terms of circling, we want to seek a motion to, sorry, I'm just thinking, go ahead. Yep, if you want to make a motion to table it. Counselor.
Sorry, I should have my microphone on.
Counselor Kapitanek has made a motion to table this, or to refer this to
Legal counsel.
refer this to legal counsel to answer the questions on process. On the question of the adoption of the motion to refer this to legal counsel to address the questions of process, all those in favor? 2, 4, sorry, 6, 7, opposed. Okay, the count is 7 and 2, and the motion that is referred to legal counsel. No, that's the motion as proposed. Is there anything else you want to deal with this? Are we moving on? Counselor Kapitanek?
We can also make a motion that bylaw 01720023 be given first reading as presented. That motion was not made.
Yep, and we're tabling we've tabled whether a motion can override the bylaw. We can put first reading on the table. I don't see why that would be a problem. Does anybody else? Counselor Kapitanek has moved first reading of 0172023. Is there any discussion? Counselor Mittens?
Just
And just,
Can we discuss the bylaw itself? or
Yep.
not? Yeah,
absolutely, that's why, it's on the table for a discussion.
okay,
And I
so,
think it doesn't conflict in that we had a motion to do something. We've sent that to legal to
Right.
see, is that okay? That doesn't prohibit us from making a decision around the bylaw that's sitting here. So the floor is yours.
so through the chair to the CAO, 6.6. Meetings will be scheduled on the third Tuesday of every month. Is that recommended by admin for a meeting every month? Or would you rather see every 2 months, or what's your recommendation on that?
Mr. Chair, it's only what I'm used to, so and used to in several municipalities. I'm used to there not being committee meetings, but a regularly scheduled committee of the whole. So I'm used to there being always 2 council meetings and 1 committee of the whole every month, but maybe less committee meetings. But so that's why we recommended, and I believe it was raised that that's the way we were trending anywhere. So we recommend, why don't we just write it into the bylaws so that it's set, and it but honestly, from an administrative perspective, when there are when you have more meetings that are at the will of the chair, actually it causes us a lot of grief. So I mean, sometimes so this is a self-serving motion. We like predictability, and we know what the deadlines are and we can work to them. It just makes it more efficient for us if we knew that there were 3 set dates every month. And we could work towards those, Mr. Chair.
So it remains yours.
Thank you for that response. I guess it was a great response. I honestly think this would have been a lot easier to get through if we would have actually sent this to the committee of the whole first, that discussed it openly as we're doing right now, than to bring it to county council and say, it just feels to me, I'm gonna be just frank here, it just feels to me like it's getting slammed down our throats without us even having a discussion about it. And that's why you're seeing, as far as I care, such a big pushback. Now that I see administration and our CAO is actually there's good points to this. And that, to me, should have been discussed at a committee of the whole meeting prior to it going to county council, but that's my thoughts. And I think that's where we're actually getting to stalemate right now is this discussion didn't happen prior.
And certainly, admin has the discretion to propose things to us that they think are valuable, and
Exactly, but timing is the essence. Where should it be discussed first? That's why we have a committee of the whole meeting, is to be able to openly discuss this prior to it coming to council. My thoughts.
moving around the table, Councillor Cromwell, Councillor Holland, comments?
And thank you, I guess, and again, thank you as well, CAO for the explanation. I guess the issue still arises though, when it comes to having these conversations. That's what we're supposed to be doing. And we do these in public so the public can hear what we're talking about. In Cal, it is not live streamed. And so therefore, the public does not have the same access as they would in a council meeting. And I believe all discussions should be happening where public are available to hear. And so for me, I struggle a little bit about all these conversations happening in Cal that aren't happening at this table.
Councillor Cromwell, floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. As we have decided to send that to legal, would it maybe be appropriate to give 1 or 2 changes or drafts to legal? What would be more appropriate? I very much agree that I think we can keep the committee of the whole under the procedural bylaw, but that we can add in the lines about the election of chair and vice chair at our organizational meeting, and have the 6.6 with the finite date for that meeting going forward each month without having to do a separate policy. Would would that be something that would be appropriate to maybe forward to legal as a draft or an option, and that way it could be very simple, hey, these are the 2 lines we're adding to our procedural bylaw that cover everything without having to make a standalone policy.
I mean, maybe the CIO maybe would be a better position to speak to this, but if you felt so motivated, it would not be unreasonable for you to propose an amendment to 6.2 that that just reads the election of chair and vice chair will occur at the organizational meeting.
I believe I'm making that amendment and adding 6.6 as in our package.
Okay, you don't have to add 6.6, because we're talking about the bylaw as presented to us. So we're just amending the presentation of 6.2. Like 6.6 already in there, so you don't need to do anything. We're voting on the document in front of us.
Okay, can we
So what I think your intention was to amend 6.2 to change the language to appoint the chair and vice chair at the organizational meeting.
correct?
Okay, Councillor Cromwell has moved an amendment to item 6.2 to change, to strike the language and replace it with to appoint the chair and the vice chair at the organizational meeting. Discussion on the further discussion on this proposed. There's basically, this is identical bylaw with two minor amendments to it that's been recommended by administration to simplify what we do. Councillor Kapitanek, the floor is yours.
Yeah, and I believe that the idea of automatically having the deputy reeve take on the responsibility committee of the whole falls in line with in a kind way saying there is a reason that the reeve and deputy reeve are compensated for the extra time that they spend in service to our community and this council. And committee of the whole can be looked at as the same, if not more work as council itself. And so having those 2 people automatically chair those meetings makes sense to me for the time involved / compensation / they are elected by their peers as ideally the people to best serve those roles. So to take away the respect of their election by saying that we need to re-elect them or someone else for chairing 2 of the most important meetings. If you're going to talk committee of the whole, would you not just assume then you would have to elect someone to chair council? It would only make sense. I just think it's extra work. It's no reason. And that's 2 roles that should be served by the 2 people in that position.
Further comments? Councillor Holland?
Thank you. I just want to clarify, this isn't about disrespect at all. It's more about giving everyone an opportunity in these positions to expand their skills and to provide consistency with the rest of how we do the rest of our voting. So nothing to do with any disrespect whatsoever. It's more to do with everybody having an opportunity to expand their skill.
Councillor Wallach.
And I would agree, having a deputy reeve chair a significant meeting is a great opportunity then for them to learn how to chair a council meeting. This is we all have options to be part of committees and chair different committees if we want to. Council and committee of the whole are fairly large, significant committees in our meetings. So giving the option for the deputy reeve to have that seat as the chair gives them the opportunity to learn how to chair a meeting better when it comes to council.
Councillor Gerlich, you haven't spoken. Do you have any comments or wisdom you want to share? I assume you're responding to the wisdom part.
I was just gonna say, you pretty well let me out there when you brought wisdom. I'm not a big fan of the cow and the way it operates. in any way, shape or form. And in a lot of jurisdictions, like the role of deputy reeve rotates on an annual basis so that people get exposure, a number of people get exposure to it. So that there are more people that can provide continuity after an election should people not return. And I don't like the idea of concentrating all of the major responsibilities in the hands of a few. It's something that should move around. I don't know if that's wisdom or.
Who do we not have? Councillor Mins, do you want to speak to the amendment?
I will mirror Councillor Chamzik. A little bit here was stating that honestly, my vote wouldn't change anyway. And because I do like the way Councillor Anderson runs the committee of the whole. The other thing now that I've heard from administration themselves stating why this is a good thing, and with the understanding of that, yeah, I'm okay with it.
Councillor Chamzik, you haven't spoken. Did you want to?
I definitely do feel torn. Well, of course, you guys have already spoken my opinions on Democratic, right? But hearing that administration do speak about the continuities and the learning process, not thinking about our current deputy, but I mean future deputies, so on and so forth in the future. It's definitely a consideration that I never really thought about at that level of how important that is. I just need a little bit of time to think about it.
Councillor Cromwell, you moved the amendment. Councillor Anderson, did you want to address the amendment? Nope. Then in speaking to it, I would administration has made recommendations to us about sort of more normalizing. I am of the view we don't need a made in Athabasca County solution for every single thing we do. I think sometimes we don't serve ourselves well by overcomplicating. I do think that in terms of the agenda of council, and it's important to take out the individuals involved and really just look at the process and we're not setting up things for ourselves individually. We're setting up a process for the future for our council and those that follow it. So, when you have both council and the committee of the whole, those are the two critical committees that move the agenda of council forward. And you select two council typically, selects a reeve and a deputy reeve and whoever they are. And in order to take council's agenda and keep it moving at the rate council wants it to happen through the bylaws and instructions and things that those roles are told to do. So I would speak against the amendment in favor of administration's recommendation. I do think that you have, the election of the chair and the deputy reeve at the same time is not inconsistent with how we do things. We do have other committees that, that we do elect the chairs differently, and that's fine for them. Some of those we may keep, some of those we may make different choices on. But there are lots of other opportunities through all the organizations we sit on. And I think there's like, I'll say 25 or 30 committees around the region that we are members of. And so as it relates to the amendment, I would be opposed to that. And I would accept the recommendation of administration because I think we need to get away from making things more difficult to less. Now, Councillor Anderson, you have said no. Councillor Cromwell, do you want a brief concluding remark before we move to calling a question on the amendment itself?
Thank you. You know, Reeve, you made some great points about as you were talking there. And so did everyone when we were talking about the need for, you know, continuity and doing things in an appropriate way but still the need to have that election. And what does it take during our org meeting? 2 to 3 minutes for the selection of chair and vice chair. I don't think that's a big ask, even when we're doing a Reeve and deputy Reeve. The ability for this to be vote and open, and realizing that administration has just made the statement of, you know, possibly bringing back the dissolution of budget and finance, policy review, moving to one committee, and how important it would be to have something where more than 1 or 2 people can have a contribution is vitally important to our organization. So in the fairness of transparency, of good governance, I think you need to vote in affirmative of this amendment so that everyone has equal opportunity and we are not keeping things from everyone else.
Oh, can you define that? That's an accusation
Allow
that
me,
I
no,
object.
allow me to define then. Not keeping to everyone else, allowing everyone to have equal opportunity to rotate through the position of
I would
chair and
ask an
deputy
apology
chair.
on that. Counselor Anderson.
Thank you. I absolutely take that as a personal slight from you and a personal attack, and I don't appreciate that at all.
None was meant at all.
I would also be really concerned if at any point council elected a deputy Reeve who's not worthy of chairing any committee, as we have right now. And if this amendment was to pass, your deputy Reeve has no duty to chair any committee. And for somebody to not be responsible for chairing any committee and then have to step into chairing a council meeting role, I can't ever imagine that being a really efficient way to run council. And I agree that people need to gain experience through chairing different committees, but you also have to respect the role of deputy Reeve, regardless of who's sitting there, and just hope that that person is really pursuing that professional development opportunity, because one day they could be leaned on to chair council. And I also, I don't know how you really steer the meeting too much as the chair. I find that when you're chairing a meeting, you almost get less say. And sometimes that puts you in a harder position. I think that the members sitting around the table get a lot more say than the chair some days, and just completely opposed to the amendment.
There's an amendment on the floor to appoint at the org meeting, the chair and vice chair, to appoint the chair and vice chair of the committee of the whole at the organizational meeting. That's an amendment to item 6.2. All those in favor? Opposed? Ellie, how did you vote? Could we have that again in favor? Okay, opposed. So it is 4 and 5, and the amendment is defeated. Sorry, I didn't count my own vote. I was thinking, this doesn't work. Okay, so there is a proposal to put first, there's a motion to put first reading of 0172023 on the table. There is obviously 2 more readings to have discussions on this issue. Councilor Anderson?
Yeah, just for clarity, if we passed first reading but declined second reading, then the amendments are not imposed, correct?
Right,
So we can pass first reading and then wait for the legal opinion
yep, of the other
about the
stuff.
policy
Yep.
before we consider second reading?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
So you can move this advanced one step without actually engaging the bylaw itself by voting in favor of first reading. Again, with 2 more readings to come. Because we can do this all again next time, and the time after that. Is there further discussion on first reading of bylaw 0172023? Seeing none, on the question of the adoption of first reading of 0172023, all those in favor? Opposed? The count is 5 and 4 and sorry, 6 and 3, and the bylaw is first reading is carried. Lunch is here. Why don't we break for, how long would be suitable, folks? 20 minutes or 15? 6 weeks. Can we be back at 25 after the roll? That's reconvene. Are you ready, Jordan? It's 12:25. I'd like to reconvene the December 12th council meeting. The next item of business is 7.5. It's a borrowing bylaw. This one is an annual procedural requirement. Is there anybody willing to move first reading? Counselor Holland?
Yes, first reading, please. And I've got a whole bunch of amendments. No, I'm kidding.
I was gonna make a comment about, but I thought it would be in bad taste. Thank you for that smile. Counselor Holland has moved first reading of item 7.5 procedural bylaw 012024. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, on the question of the adoption of first reading of 012024, all those in favor? The motion is adopted 9-0. We'll count Counselor Gerlich as being in the doorway when that happened. Opposed? Perfect. Is someone willing to move second reading? Counselor Cromwell has moved second reading of 012024. Is there any discussion on that matter? Seeing none. On the question of the adoption of the motion to move second reading of 012024, all those in favor? Opposed? And the count is 9-0. That motion is adopted. Is someone willing to seek unanimous consent? Counselor Anderson, is there unanimous consent of council to move to third reading? All those in favor? Opposed? The count is 9-0. Are you in favor or opposed? The count is 9-0, and council has provided unanimous consent to do 3 readings in one meeting. On third reading, I think Counselor Gerlich wants to move that. It's just a bit anxious there. Counselor Gerlich has moved third reading of 012024. Is there any discussion? It's the last chance. On the question of the adoption of the motion to approve third reading is 012024, all those in favor? Opposed? Count is 9-0, and third reading is approved. We have, Counselor Holland, you added 8.1 to the agenda. Did you want to move a motion?
Yes, I would like to split the recommended,
Do you want to move the motion first?
yes, I would like to move that we split the recommendation into 4.
Okay, you'd like to move the motion first and then ask to split the question. We'll do
I
that
would like to move as recommended.
and split it. Okay. So we've got a recommended motion by administration. We're going to split that into 4 distinct propositions. Is there any discussion? Counselor Holland, the floor is yours since you moved the motion.
Oh, I have no discussion. I'm just would like to move forward with the voting.
Okay, is there any discussion from anyone other than Counselor Holland? So on the, let's look at the order. Sorry, give me a second. So our, I'm going to speak to this one then. The recommendation is that council approve the annual requisition for the multiplex facility. I know from observations that the board has been working diligently to bring the increases in operational costs to a minimum and to reduce their expenses. Also, they've done some future planning around the just the projections for future years. And so the projected increase is not in my opinion, it's a proven principle. It's not a guarantee of our approval or a commitment that we will absolutely approve a 5% increase next year. But it's something to give them some hope to within their budgets. The capital requisition for the multiplex is always handled separately, and that's quite a modest number relative to the list of needs there are. All of these are equally matched by the town, so we don't put in what the town doesn't equally match. And one of the discussions that I can share from the meetings I've sat through is, and I think this is a positive sign for the thinking and the maturity of the board, they are looking to work on capital projects that are multi-year in nature and to ask for fixed amounts every year. And to work out a reasonable number there so they can manage their capital budget within that to create predictability for the councils involved so that it's not giant one year and little the next. And as part of that, there's also a funding that was approved in the 2023 budget to go towards our contribution to a grant. It only makes sense that the multiplex be able to hold that in a restricted reserve in anticipation of the grant approval and get it off of our books since we committed to it in the 2023 year and we should get it paid and held there. There's no shortage of capital requirements in a facility that big, and as a landlord of the facility, I think through the facility review that the CAO has mentioned previously, I think we'll find that we're eventually going to have some additional responsibilities to look after in terms of the landlord's maintenance on that building. So starting, I think, from the bottom up, is there further discussion? Sorry. I'm going to put an M beside Tracy. Councillor Holland, do you want a final word now? No, you're the final word, so.
With regards to the last item, the county council approved the release of funds previously allocated for the solar PV capital project to the Athabasca Regional Multiplex totaling $251,558.20 to be deposited in a restricted reserve held by the Athabasca Regional Multiplex Society. Through the chair to CAO, where are the funds currently sitting?
CAO? In our bank account would be my guess.
Yeah, the funds are sitting in our accounts, so typically they would complete the project and then invoice us either throughout the project or completion of the project, depending on the size. And we'd pay them once invoiced, so the funds are just sitting in our accounts.
And that's a system that I would interject. I think they're trying to get away from so that they can plan a fixed amount to say, we get a little surplus this year, we have a bigger project next year, we're going to have a few dollars extra that we'll save in advance of that so that it's not this whipsaw for the councils.
I struggle with that. If there is a particular capital project, there is a total here. I believe that it should remain in our accounts where the county is able to continue to earn interest. And when that project, the solar PV project, is complete, then that again, they follow the proper process. So I'm not in support of just transferring it now without that project being complete.
You didn't ask to speak. On the question of the adoption of the motion that the council approve the release of funds allocated for the capital project to the multiplex totaling $251,588 to be deposited in a restricted reserve at the multiplex. All those in favor? Opposed? Count is 6 and 3, and the motion is adopted. On the question of the adoption of the motion, the county council approve a capital requisition from the Multiplex Society of $95,000 for the 2024 capital budget. Is there any discussion? Councillor Anderson.
Thank you. When dealing with the capital budget, we're trying really hard as the chair of the Multiplex Society. The board is trying really hard to create more predictable funding requests rather than, 1 year could be a Zamboni for an astronomical amount. We're trying to really hard to plan long-term strategy. And that's why the release of the 251 will factor into that, because rather than asking for that 251 continuously every single year and us having to increase what we have on our books for our capital this year by another 251, again, to carry it forward, that's now off our books and the planning long range is going to happen. So I really thank you very much for that and look forward to continuing to
Do you have comments on the current motion?
push there so that the capital request is more predictable in nature.
Other comments on the portion of the motion relating to the $95,000 capital request? I think, I'm going to again speak to that piece. One of the advantages for like, as we try to advance how we work as a council and as a municipality, our council has talked a lot about staying in your lane. And so I support certainly the idea that the society would make capital requests that are specific in number. And it's not council's role to get into the details of, we agree that this should be part of it or that should be part of it. It's to allocate them the equivalent of an allowance for capital repairs and maintenance that's based on good planning, but it's not up to council to micromanage. Do they, is it new doorknobs this year, a new window panes next, or whatever? It's up to the board of the multiplex to govern that organization appropriately. So I think this is a step forward in terms of good governance and sound management. Councillor Holland, you get the last word on that, but I'm going to ask the table if there's anybody else that wants to speak before you. Seeing not, you decline. On the question that of the adoption of the portion of the motion that council approve the capital requisition from the Athabasca Multiplex Society of 95,000 for the 2024 budget, all those in favor? Opposed is 9-0, and the motion is adopted.
That
You're
was
up
8-1,
8
Chair.
and 1, you're up for both. Okay, 8-1, the motion's adopted. The next motion is that council approve in principle a 5% increase year over year to the Regional Multiplex Society requisition for the 25 to 27 draft operating budgets. Discussion. Councillor Minns, floor is yours.
So this draft operating budget is in place, and they know how much they need the 5% year after year after year. Or
I'm going to defer that to the chair.
Thank you. A lot of the costs of operating the multiplex are very fixed, right? The power in the building and the water required and that kind of stuff. So we're taking strides like the solar solar PV project to hopefully reduce some of those costs so we won't see a 5% increase. But because the county asked for the longer term strategy, we're saying right now it's a 5% increase in theory to kind of cover the costs of the inflation on those fixed costs. We are hoping to reduce that so that it won't continue to escalate 5%. The numbers that we had reported on the solar PV project were significant savings to the energy efficiency of the building. And we're really hoping that the federal government will approve that grant any day now so that we can see that project completed and see those savings implemented.
So then if we approve this, it's automatically going to come out at 5%? Or
they're just draft budgets for planning purposes.
oh, okay.
I think council still remains the ultimate authority to, in my view, and the CAO or director can correct this, but annually we'll approve the requisitions that come from the Multiplex Society. But this is just to say, in principle, we would acknowledge that they're planning a modest increase, and we've asked, I think, the county has asked for a longer range plan from them, so they've done what we've asked.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Holland, other comments before Councillor Holland speaks? Floor is yours.
Thanks. I guess my concern here is anything to do with funding that we're looking at in principle. These numbers should be coming to us and then the decisions being made. So I'm figuring, I think this is just a little too much of an ask.
Okay, on the question of the adoption of the motion that the county approve in principle an increase of 5% per year to the Regional Multiplex Society requisition for the 25 to 27 draft operating budgets, all those in favor? Opposed? And the count is 6-3, and that motion is adopted. The final motion here is that the county council approve the requisition from the Athabasca Regional Multiplex Society of $940,000 for the 2024 operating budget. Is there any additional discussion on that item? Councillor Mintz, the floor is yours.
That's split between the town and the county?
That's
or
$940 each.
That's $940 each?
Yep. Any additional comments? Counselor Holland? Given that no one's racing to put their hand up, I'll let you
Thank you.
close.
This amount is hard to swallow. I find it. I don't want to keep referring to how we handle our other services, but when they're not all handled the same way, I struggle with these amounts when we have other services that are an absolute necessity. So I'm opposed.
On the question of the adoption of the motion that council approve the requisition from the Regional Multiplex Society of 940,000 for the 2024 operating budget, all those in favor? Opposed? The motion is adopted. The count is 6-3. The next item is Councillor Wallach. You added 8.3, the multiplex AGM voting member.
I would like to make a motion that council appoints Councillor Kapitaniak as a voting member for the Multiplex Society AGM on December 18th, 2023.
Councillor Wallach has moved. The council appoints Councillor Kapitaniak as the voting member for the Multiplex Society AGM on December 18th, 2023. I think the background is in there. The Multiplex Society has 2 members. One is the town, one is the county, and each organization needs to appoint one individual to act as their voting representative. So this is really a housekeeping item to comply with the bylaws of the Multiplex Society. Is there any discussion? Councillor Holland.
I'm not sure if a reason can be obtained, but since we mentioned earlier, the duties of the deputy reeve are greater than councillor. I'm just curious why these have been.
Well, Councillor Wallach is able to make a motion that she chooses, and
I understand. So I was asking for the reasoning of it.
Councillor Anderson, do you want to speak to that?
Thank you. I'd like to speak in favor of the motion. As the chair of the Multiplex Society, I'll be chairing the meeting. So it just streamlines things a little bit easier to have one member from the county and one member from the town who are not chairing the meeting as the voting members. So thank you.
Additional comments? Seeing none on the question of the adoption of the motion to appoint Councillor Kapitaniak as the voting member to the Multiplex Society AGM on December 18, 2023, all those in favor? Opposed? The count is 9-0, and the motion is adopted. Congratulations, Councillor Kapitaniak. You have. Right. Councillor Anderson, we're at 8.3. You added this to the agenda.
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion to direct administration to provide a report outlining council's role in the Rochester School viability analysis.
Councilor Anderson, can you repeat that?
Direct administration to provide a report outlining council's role in the Rochester School viability analysis.
So Councillor Anderson has moved a motion to direct admin to provide a report to council outlining council's role in the Rochester School viability analysis. Sorry, I'm just gonna. Did you want to speak to it first and then we'll open the floor?
So I understand that Aspen View originally discussed this viability analysis at their October meeting. Then they were a delegation to council on November 14th, and I don't recall any mention or request for us to provide input. And while I understand that they've asked for all stakeholders in general to provide input, I just want to make sure that we're not crossing a boundary here. And so I'd like administration to just say, what part are we commenting on, or where is our role in this process?
Other comments? Councillor Holland.
Thank you. I guess I'm a bit confused as to with regards to our role in the viability study. The Rochester School Viability Information for Stakeholders document that Aspen View sent out is requesting all stakeholders' input. And for that matter, if you would like to have a meeting with superintendent, that that is also possible. I believe personally, that council's role is to ensure that our hamlets and the schools within them are functioning for our communities and that they are an extreme asset to our hamlets. So for me, I'm concerned, of course, with the consideration of Rochester School closing and how that impacts our hamlets and our county. And I believe as a counselor, our role is to ensure that we do the best that we can to maintain safe communities that are functioning and producing for what they have.
Other comments? Do you want the motion repeated? Counselor Capitanek? Okay. Are there any other comments at the table? No. Counselor Gerlich?
Well, I think that in most cases, ratepayers of the area would consider it an obligation of the municipality to represent them in a situation like this, because it has a detrimental effect on the community and the taxpayers. It affects probably land prices, a number of things in the area. And I know I've talked to a number of parents that said, well, if the school was lost, they probably would revert to homeschooling and things like that. And I don't think that's a positive thing for children. And the parents that are sending their children there are strongly in favor of supporting it. And I certainly think it would be the obligation of the municipality to assist wherever they could.
Other comments at the table? Counselor Minns, your hand is up.
Yeah, I guess we're all in, there's not a counselor sitting around this table that isn't opposed to any school closing anywhere, probably in Alberta, and especially in county jurisdiction. And I think the school board knows that. We can send them a letter that says that, but if we meet with them, I guess, what are we going to be discussing? Because we want to support the hamlet down there. We want to support it as part of the libraries. We want to support it, and that. But what are we going to discuss with the school side? Are we going to? That's the biggest thing. And I guess this report is asking that, right? What are we going to discuss? So but a letter to the school side or even the Reeve and walking over there saying, hey, we support the school not closing. I don't know where else we could go. Like we need to know what the discussion is going to be before we sit down and actually talk to them about anything. Because they have budgets and we have budgets, right? They don't tell us where to build roads, and because if they do, we're going to ask them for money, right? So that's all I want to say. But I very much support not closing the school. Why not? Why would you close a school other than if you're not making money or if it's costing you too much money, right? It's nobody is sitting around this table is going to say that let's close the school. It'd be suicide.
Counselor Wallach, the floor is yours.
I guess if it's my understanding, Councillor Anderson's motion is to bring back kind of where we would stand and like what we could lose potentially. We make a lot of speculations on this table with this topic that it could decrease land values or do something, but we actually don't know that. So I would like to see some kind of actual facts on that, if that could come back to us.
Other comments, Counselor Cromwell or Janik, Chamzik, Counselor Chamzik?
I do think it's really important that we do see some sort of facts, also remembering that as they are elected officials, that as we are staying like Councillor Mins also said, but I personally will always be an advocate for small rural schools, but that's also not my role personally at this table right now.
Councillor Cromwell, did you want a word, or Councillor Capitanic?
No, thank you.
I think, you know, we obviously recognize that schools are critical and important to communities, whether it's Smith or Grassland or Wandering River, and some are by necessity and some aren't. But we are being asked to take a position not by Aspen View. They actually haven't asked us anything yet. And so I think to do so without having that complete picture isn't okay for me. And so I think this is an important conversation for us to engage in, but I think it would be critical in my mind that we understand what our lane is, how we respect those boundaries. And so I support the motion to have admin provide us a more fulsome picture of this before making any committed decisions. We've been around once. Is everybody okay going around twice? Pardon me? Go ahead.
Thank you. The feedback that we've been requested, all stakeholders who have been requested, is to share with the Board of Trustees prior to January 25th, 2024. Is through the chair to the CAO. Is that possible for administration to provide what the motion is requesting prior to January 25th, 2024?
This has been on the books since April or October 26th at least at Aspen View's end. So there's been plenty of time to have this here. Like I think being asked to rush a decision because it showed up in December isn't like, do you have the capacity to present this back to the January meeting?
Mr. Chair, yes. We can present an RFD on your role in advocacy of those matters, or legal boundaries, not role. The role is up to you, but we'll provide some advice about your legal boundaries on it.
And that was kind of my concluding comment there, was that we get the information from admin on how we respect those boundaries. Now, Councillor Cromwell has declined. Councillor Capitanic, do you want to speak? Councillor Anderson, do you want a final word? Okay, on the question of the adoption of the motion for administration to provide a report to council outlining council's role in the Rochester School viability analysis. All those in favor? Opposed? Sorry, Councillor Holland, I missed how you voted. In the positive, so we're 9-0. That motion is adopted. The next item of business is a handout. It is number 8.6, the operating and capital budgets. And that would make sense to offer the floor to the chair of the Budget and Finance Committee.
I would like to move that we approve I would like to move that we approve the 2024 operating capital budgets and the 2025 to 28 operating capital plans as recommended by the Budget and Finance Committee.
Councillor Capitanic has made a recommendation to approve the 2024 operating and capital budgets and the 25 to 28 operating and capital plans as recommended by the Budget and Finance Committee. Open the floor for discussion. Do you want to say anything at the beginning?
Yes. I would just like to say that this budget is an amazing document that shows a lot of teamwork between council, a lot of teamwork with administration, new directors, new people in place, all learning to work together very quickly on what is considered the most important job we will do as a whole organization every year. And I'm proud to be a part of it. And I really think that we have done our taxpayers a great service with this document. I feel that we have listened to the people and focused on our community and focused on future planning, and that not my children, but potentially some of your children will hopefully want to be in municipal politics and will be coming in to represent in this county, knowing that their councils of the past have planned for their future, and this is something that I feel shows that. So thank you, everyone, for your hard work. That is all I have to say.
That sounds like a victory speech. CAO, the floor is yours.
And Mr. Chairman, I'm just going to offer that there is at one point some questions about some changes we made in the budget relative to construction and reclamation. And that was actually going to be the purpose of 12.5. So if council wants to divert to 12.5 for some information about that at any time or right now, we'd be happy to brief you on that.
I would look at the table. Is there anybody that would like that? Okay, let's, Counselor Mins is going to make a motion to table this item. Why don't we, if we're going to go close, do all the closed session items and then come back? Since we're done, that will save time. To table this item until after the closed session and to move the closed session items to be right now. Is that okay with that? Yep. Nine and 0. It's in order to take a motion in a closed session. Counselor.
Point of clarification, please read.
Yep.
Did we accept for, do we remember to accept the RCMP presentation?
That was part of the consent agenda.
Thank you. I did not write that one down.
Nope, it had a super clear recommendation, so we just, that one. went
Thank
through.
you. And then motion to go into closed.
Counselor Cromwell has made a motion to enter closed session. All those in favor? Opposed? We are 9 and 0. The motion's adopted. I'm going to reconvene. We're ready to go, Jordan. So it's 25 after 2, reconvening the December 12th council meeting after a recess. We've come back from closed session. There are a number of motions to be made. Councillor Wallach has, go ahead.
I'd like to appoint Leah Olson for the ASB board member at large.
Councillor Wallach has moved the appointment of Leah Olson as a member at large for the Ag Services Board. Discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor? That is 8 and 0. Any opposed, rather? 8 and 0. The motion's adopted. FCSS, Councillor Kapitanek.
I would like to make a motion to appoint Shannon Smith as a member at large to FCSS for a 3-year term.
Councillor Kapitanek has moved that Shannon Smith be appointed as for a 3-year term as a member at large to FCSS. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor? Opposed? And the motion is carried, adopted 8 and 0. SDAB, Councillor Cromwell, you were going to make a motion. Which was,
Thank you. I'd like to make the motion to table appointment to the Intermunicipal Subdivision and Appeal Board until after February 28, 2024.
Councillor Cromwell has moved. We table the appointments to the intermunicipal SDAB until after the 28th of February, 2024. All those in favor? That is opposed? That's adopted 9 and 0. Just as a reference, tabling motions are non-debatable, which is why I didn't ask for discussion. 12.2, Councillor Mins, you wanted to make a motion regarding Alice.
To appoint Kelly Olson as member at large. Is that what you said? For a 3-year term? No. Just as a member at large.
Okay.
I think gets looked at every year.
The Councillor Mins has moved that Kelly Olson be appointed as a member at large to the ALUS board. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? That motion is adopted. Councillor Mins, you were going to make a motion regarding a lease agreement.
Was I?
Yeah, you had told me that you wanted to make a recommendation to approve the lease agreement with the Athabasca River Runners, subject to them obtaining a $2 million liability.
Great.
Perfect. Did I get that right? Yep. Is there any discussion on that? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Count is 9 and 0 and the motion is adopted. Then we are at 12.4, Councillor Anderson.
Like to move that the county council authorize the Reeve and CAO to enter into an agreement with the town of Athabasca regarding transitional housing and commit up to $175,000 in funding, subject to the following. Amend the agreement to allow flexibility of tenancy for recruitment purposes. Amend the agreement to require information sharing between the town and county relative to tenants' proposed annual budget and quarterly financial statements.
Councillor Anderson has made a motion that council authorize Reeve and CO to enter an agreement with the town regarding the recruitment and transitional housing and commit up to $175,000 in funding, subject to amending the agreement to permit flexibility of tenancy for recruitment purposes, amending the agreement to require information sharing between the town and county relative to tenants' proposed budget and year-end statements, and to require quarterly financial statements. Is that what you had said? So, and to require quarterly financial statements. Any further discussion? Seeing none, on the question of the adoption of that motion, all those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 opposed. The count is 5 and 4, and the motion is adopted. That's 12-5. 12-5 is Councillor Mins. I had you making, so I had, you want to make that motion? Now, is there someone willing to move the motion we discussed? Councillor Anderson has moved that that council pause road construction for 1 year and reallocate and to reallocate existing reserves in the amount of $1 million to pause road construction for 1 year and to reallocate $1 million in restricted reserves for road construction pending receipt of a construction plan. To reallocate from existing reserves $1 million to restricted reserves for road construction pending receipt of a construction plan. What's that? That's it's what's written here. I'm having trouble reading it. To pause road construction for 1 year and to reallocate $1 million of existing reserves into a restricted reserve for road construction pending receipt of a construction plan. For 2025. Don't ask me to repeat it too many times because it'll change. Is there any more discussion? Do we all kind of understand? Everybody clear where that's at?
Yes.
We'll have to listen to the recording maybe. On the question of the adoption of that motion, all those in favor? Opposed? 7 and 2, the motion is adopted. Is there, Councillor Chamzik, were you willing to move that council receive the report on gravel pit reclamation update for information? Councillor Chamzik has moved that we receive the report on the gravel pit reclamation update for information. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed, 9 and 0, that motion is adopted. Now we are back to budget. Is there any further discussion? Okay, budget's the single most important policy decision of council. Is there anybody, we've got a motion from Councillor Kapitanek to approve the 2024 operating and capital budgets. Councillor Wallach, did you have a comment?
Just on page 10, under the associated committee grants. Just for clarification, the doctor recruitment retention program at Athabasca, is that supposed to be 5,000 instead of 16,000? Yes, okay, thank you.
Okay, so we're going to amend that number to 5,000. Is there any objection at the table to that?
And Mr. Chair, the Boyle one's supposed to be 16.
And the
Just to
Boyle one's
clarify.
16.
That was the new number we got. So it was just lost in translation between myself and the director.
So on note number 22, we're amending the that number to 5,000 and 16,000 for a total of 21,000. Just saved $7,000 right there. Well done. Further discussion. It is possible, I will remind all council too, that we can still make amendments in the future if we need to, and new info comes to light. Councillor Holland, the floor is yours.
Thank you. if this passes today, this is what our tax bylaw is going to be based on?
No. If we don't amend it, then this would be based on the amount that we would requisition in taxes, yes.
Okay.
But it's possible later, like, we have to produce a budget by December 31st of some kind. The idea of in the past doing, you know, an interim budget that's 50% of something, or like we've done, in my personal view, makes no sense when we have something that's probably 99% of where we want to be. It's still reasonable that we would make additional adjustments in the early part of 2024.
Okay.
And then taxes, they'll end up with two bits. So even the numbers that the director shared with us, they're based on the assessment that was from 2022. And when we get the 2023 assessment, the percentages will change when that calculation is done. Yeah, so
I guess where I'm sitting at this point in time, and it's just a comment more than anything, is I'm not prepared as I haven't had enough time to go through this as it was presented to us this morning. Yesterday I felt rushed as well. I would feel more comfortable doing an interim a budget and then have a bit more time to review these documents. As mentioned, a quick error was corrected, et cetera, et cetera. So I would rather feel comfortable having more time. So that's just where I'm at.
and remembering this can be considered an interim budget too. Other comments? I want to, while you're thinking about that, commend, all of my colleagues on the forward planning contained in this document that relates to some of the reserve fund we're starting to set money aside for the long-term planning of these unfunded liabilities for the fire service stuff. I think compared to what we had in year number one, this is a massive leap forward, and we'll continue to. I expect this to be a better process next year too. Is there any more discussion on budget? Seeing none, there is.
So yeah, I'd like to thank you very much for all the great work put in this. I know it can be unbelievable the amount of work that goes into these. So we can make this an interim budget. And how do we?
All budgets are, in my opinion, all budgets are subject to revision later. So I don't think you have to do anything in particular except come back to it in the spring with something different if we needed to.
I guess the biggest, how do we come back? Does it take a 2/3 vote to come back and look at the budget again, or?
Admin is shaking their heads. I don't know. Budgets are done by motion, I would think probably, but I can't see why, with compelling reasons to come back, why we wouldn't.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, there are some places they call it interim budget every December, every year. And it absolutely needs to be refined before that and final budget and when you set the mill rate. But generally you come back a couple of times to review. As you get new information, we don't even get our assessment information till the end of February and all the other requisitions, right, from other partners. So you don't have a total budget till at least March. So if you want to review parts of it, you can do it at any time if you want to review the whole thing. So I think we've got lots of opportunities.
Councilor Gerlich.
I've always been concerned that there's seem to be a number of issues that never ever seem to get on the radar. We'll be talking about, and as we were going through this process, we brought a number of items up and they're being looked at. We've gone so far with this and we're working on this and we're working on that, which I find extremely encouraging. I feel much more comfortable than I ever have in the previous couple of years, and I'd just like to say thank you for that.
Okay, I think the discussion has reached its where it needs to be. On the question of the adoption of the motion to approve the 2024 operating and capital budgets and the 25 to 28 operating and capital plans as recommended by the Budget and Finance Committee, all those in favor? Opposed? So we are 8-1. You were in favor. 8-1 and the motion is adopted. Where does that leave us? Hungry, tired? I think that's at the request of Councillor Capitanic, why don't we come back at 1:45? That's like 8 minutes. It is a quarter to 3, and I'd like to reconvene the county council meeting for December 12th of 2023. Thank you for council and admin for sitting through what's already been a longish day. The next item of business on our agenda is number 9.1, calendars. Let's just be efficient, and we're going to start at one end of the table and work our way around. Which end do we want to start at? Councilor Cromwell, are you ready?
I am absolutely ready.
You have the floor.
I have nothing to add, and I'll make the motion to approve as amended once done.
Okay, Councilor Gerlich? Okay. Okay, Councilor Kaptanik. Ooh, whoops, that's a good one. Move over there. Okay, moving the multiplex from the 19th to the 18th. I had in January, I wanted to propose to council that we make the council meeting at 9:30 as normal, and we make MPC at a time after council. So pick something, 11 o'clock, 1 o'clock, and just have it deferred till council's over so that we don't run into hiccups like we did today. So talking about the 30th of January. So say council at 9:30 would be what I'm proposing to you, and MPC, let's say at 11. Pardon me? Let's do it at 11, and then, because I mean, the worst cases, we could actually pause the council meeting for 15 minutes while the chair whips through the MPC agenda. That works. Okay.
I may have to confer with the members of the MPC.
All right, other Councilor Wallach, anything to add?
Since our last meeting, we called a county library meeting, which was yesterday, December 11th. And other than that, January 16th, Boyle Library at 7 p.m.
Sorry, which was it?
Boyle
January
Library,
16th.
January 16th. Okay, Councilor Holland.
I'd like to propose a policy review either January 10th or January 17th. Since we had to adjourn early.
I can't on the 17th.
Can't on the 17th. That's or is that open house turning? Oops, sorry. One down. Does it work for everybody else? Or does the 10th work better? Well, I'm proposing on policy review after community transportation on the 10th, so 11 a.m. or the 17th, but Councilor Wallach can't make the 17th. 10th would be.
Why don't we
better.
do 1 o'clock on the 10th?
I'm sorry.
Why don't we do 1 o'clock on the 10th, and then we don't need lunch?
Sure, I'm sure I can find something to do in between that time.
Or you're gonna be busy all morning with transportation?
Mr. Chair, I've got no problem with the 10th, but remember the policy requires us to get the agenda out 10
Yeah, that
days
might be-
before. So that would be, and it's like not gonna happen. So as long as council knows we will not be meeting that policy of meeting the timeline, the 10th is fine, but you're not gonna get the
Okay,
What about the
agenda.
31st?
I'm sorry, the 31st? Sure, we could do that. too.
Because that way we don't overtax admin during the holiday season, or I'm sure
Sure.
somebody would like to take some time off.
9:30.
February
What day? I'm sorry.
Or on the 16th. Oh, yeah. She's gotta get. Okay, Councilor Mins,
PD day on the 30th.
I'm good. You, nothing to add. Okay, so the amendments we've made, library,
Mr. Chair,
Yep.
got two that
oh, you have
for you to think about.
Okay.
One was from for tri-council meeting.
Okay.
So we've got two dates that seem to work for Boyle and Athabasca. That's 29th or 31st of January.
Okay.
And then once we figured that out, we've got a request from Athabasca to see if they can council to council meeting. And it's right around that time too, so. We sent them some dates, as you will recall. They didn't work for them at all, so they sent 4 optional dates, but two of those conflict with the tri-council dates, so if there's either 29th or 31st work for this council for them, then we've got the other days to play with.
Does everybody like if we're here for policy on the 31st, do we want the 31st? Tri-council? No, Boyle's hosting. Oh, that's a problem, because I'm gonna drive to Boyle, but that's okay, because we're usually done by 4 o'clock. We can. Try,
31st?
we're agreeable to tri-council on the 31st? Oh, what? I don't drive them. I don't drive them home. I just drive them to school. They walk. Exactly. That way they can't say it's uphill both ways. Okay, tri-council on the 31st in Boyle. Thanks, Kelly, for that. I didn't know it was a PD day, but that's okay. I'm always surprised by those. And then the town wants a different day. Do you have one to propose for
Yeah,
them?
they propose, Mr. Chairman, either all January, 24th, 29th, or 30th, because the 31st is out.
The 24th would be out because of ASB.
Okay.
I don't know, 2 days in a row. I mean, the 30th is actually quite convenient for me, but it's just gonna be it's 2 days in a row, so.
Not sure, we'd have to figure it out.
Oh, okay, so Tuesday works for you.
What's that?
So it sounds like the 30th works for almost everybody. Is there anybody that objects to the 30th? We just have to. Right. So we can, everybody's okay to tell the town the 30th works for them? For us. Yeah. Yep. Only one.
Is there any reason why we can't meet with the town prior to the tri-council meeting? And put it all in one evening? Pardon?
They have
Well, I'm
grounds.
saying, but just prior to, I mean, how long are we going to meet with the town that we couldn't give half an hour, 3/4 an hour, and then carry on?
Only thing is it might go a little bit longer.
Well, we haven't seen the agenda, so I'm just thinking if we combine the two, it would just be easier.
I don't mind them buying us lunch.
You what?
I don't mind them buying us supper though.
No.
Do we have a time for?
I think that's a reasonable idea. I would be nervous about trying to make it all fit. Because we got to get from here to Boyle and,
Oh, we're going to Boyle.
yeah,
Oh, well, so are they.
I think it'd be,
So, but they are too. I don't know, it's just an option.
so Counselor Holland has suggested we try to pack them together. I don't know if anybody, I think the CAO, you got a comment?
Yeah, just, why don't we hold the 30th as a placeholder, but let's just check back with the town, like some of the items that I think were gonna be the subject of discussion. I think we've kind of approved, so maybe there's no need to meet right now, so why don't I check? Save it as a placeholder and then we'll report back to you at the next council meeting. How's that?
Would that satisfy everybody on the left and the right? Right and the left.
31st, there a town that.
Let's let Boyle tell us, but I don't know.
Oh, they-
Yeah.
Nope, that wasn't specified. No time yet.
No time yet? Okay. Oh, you guys, you were trying to get people to come. All right. Counselor Cromwell has moved the adoption of the calendar as amended. Is there any further discussion on that? Let's get into the silly time, so let's seeing none, all those in favor? That is adopted, opposed, Motion is carried 8-0. We have a next item of, on our agenda is 10.1 feasibility for the Green Municipal Fund. Director Whaley, this is you.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. This is probably one of the more wordier motions you're going to see recommended out of the Infrastructure Services Department, but it is the recommended resolution for FCM, which is the requiring body for us to apply for this grant. So
Sorry, and for everybody's benefit, we were given this earlier in the day. So the recommendation is the council approves this resolution describing Athabasca County's commitment to and financial support for the feasibility project and Green Municipal Fund application for the feasibility study for the green retrofit of the municipal administration building. That's the
So
motion.
moved.
Councillor Cromwell has moved that. Is there any discussion on that item? Okay. Good work. Okay, and Councillor Cromwell has moved that motion. The motion is on the floor. Is there, if there's no discussion on the question of the adoption of the motion, the council approves this resolution describing Athabasca County's commitment to and financial support for the feasibility project and Green Municipal Fund funding application for the feasibility study for the green retrofit of the municipal administration building. That's almost like picking pickled peppers. If there is no further discussion, all those in favor? Opposed? We are adopted 8-0. The motion is adopted 8-0. The next item of business is reports. Aspen Regional Water Services Commission. I put that on because I just was pre-reading Councilor Mins's mind that I assumed you'd want to. The update that I have is that the budget has been approved with a partial deferment of the basically the capital reserve contribution for the town as part of the transition to a single rate system across the region. And the discussion really nailed down that it is a 3-year phase in from 0 the first year, half the second, and full on the third year. And it was made very clear at the meeting that that was the last wobble on that, or exception made. Yep. And do you have more to add?
Yeah, we put that rate into motion that next year they are at 100% on their water rates. So and that the asset governance and asset study, we dabbled into it a little bit more. Main thing to come out of that is motion was made to advance the study and to actually the engineering company to look at taking over the county system from the commission to take over the county system from river to tap and see what that would come out like. So very happy with that movement going forward, going into being looked at. So hopefully that'll the meetings there are going to be a little bit longer for the next possibly year. Let's just say the next year, just due to the fact that they got to have the study done by December 31st of this coming year in 2024. So there's going to be a little bit more interaction between the engineering firm, Associated Engineering, and Blue Sky, whoever Blue Sky is.
Yeah, Blue Sky's working on dispute resolution process between the commission and the partner municipalities.
Right. So it's moving on, but it's gonna take a while, for sure. Yeah. I think that's one thing they did notice. I remember the commission manager saying that the pH level in the river has gone up with the water coming into the raw water plant going into our reservoir, and asked him what does he contribute that to, which consists of most likely he figures is the fires with the air quality and ash and everything coming down, even with the runoff. And that actually I was very impressed with that because that actually coincides with the Athabasca Watershed Council at their meeting. They were saying that they are also seeing the same phenomenon happening where the particulates and everything in the water that's coming, that they are testing. It's a great idea. They test too, and you just watch the figures too, and they find the same thing. So. And then a lot of Jamie's time went here last month with the water licenses. And because there's 2 water licenses, one with the town and one with the commission. Water license come from 3 water licenses.
1914, 1979,
76.
76, 74, somewhere in there,
Yeah.
70s,
And then
2008.
Yeah, 2008. 2 of them have the town of Athabasca's on there. One has Water Commission, Athabasca Regional Water Commission. Out of the whole thing, we didn't want to lose any of our water licenses, so the town, what needed to happen on the water license that the town has is the name just needed to be changed from the town to the Aspen Regional Water Commission.
And the fun trivia coming out of that is one of the original licenses was directed to Arthur Meehan, the
Yeah.
Minister of Water and something. And he was a form later on to become a Prime Minister of Canada.
There was quite a discussion on that. We figured Dave Pollock probably voted for him, but. So, a little bit of humor. So, yeah, so that's, everything's moving forward. Hopefully, we might be having a meeting in the beginning of January, but that'll be the call of chair. Whether it's required or not, being January 2nd.
Okay, Councillor Holland, you had put the minutes in from the Trails Committee. When I read them, I just had there was a note in there and you might have told us about this. So the question I had, because you said to me earlier, you'd kind of talked about this already, so I don't want to stretch council's patience on page 2 or page 140. This talks about a partnership with a pilot program for the Off-Highway Vehicle Association and the Snowmobile Association over 4 years. Is there opportunities in that for our region that were identified that I just have forgotten, or?
Actually, yes, Linda Strong Watson, who is the executive director of Alberta TrailNet, is gathering information as it mentions. The non-motorized groups, the program that they've mentioned is for public lands. And that's one of the definitions I was looking for is, does the public lands include municipal owned lands or is it strictly crown land? And so there's more information coming, and I would imagine we'll be talking more about that come January.
Thank you.
Did you want to know about other grant opportunities?
I mean,
Is there-
only what you want to share. That's just when I read this, I had that question.
Okay, there are.
I'd said you at the break about the 50,000, but I
Yeah.
was thinking about this number.
Okay, well, there are other grant opportunities actually that we could be looking into, and you can find it on the Alberta TrailNet website. They list several grants, so everything from, of course, Trans-Canada Trail is your main one. But you can also look at the Alberta Culture and Tourism Community Funding, Community Facility Enhancement Program, Community Initiatives Program. There's, she mentions a other initiatives program, which is a community-based projects that fall outside the scope, enhanced capacity advancement program, the Alberta Culture and Tourism Heritage Museums, Alberta Sport Connection. There is, and it just keeps going on. Of course, it mentions STIP, Alberta Community Partnership, Alberta Municipal Affairs, Municipalities and Communities. So there's.
You said that was on the TrailNet website?
Alberta TrailNet website. Yeah, you betcha. Yeah, it's a really good resource for finding that information.
Thank you. I didn't have any more unless other people have questions. Councilor Grill. Oh, well, I apologize. Sorry. No, I goofed up.
Now you said that for 2024, the Athabasca will not make the contributions to reserves at a lower level.
It's at a lower level.
And the reason for that is?
Well, it was just brought forward by the town to have it looked at. Last year, gave them a 1-year moratorium on on paying into reserves. And
This is another one-year moratorium?
no, we went to a half. So we went from 0 to 50% to 100%. They wanted 0, third. So
And
we
again,
negotiated.
It had to do with the move from from a multi-tiered rate to a single rate across the whole system. So their cost of bulk water went up significantly under the one tiered system.
But when we were talking about the house, the house concept with partnership with the town, it showed in their water and sewer, the estimate per month was $40 or $50. We've got citizens in grassland, the absolute minimum for a single individual is
I think though you have to distinguish, Counselor, between what they buy water at, and what they charge water out at, and the town subsidizes their water if you were to ask their CIO. So their system costs them more to run than they charge.
Really?
That's what they claim.
And so we can help them along with their subsidizing by.
But it's working together. To come to a next year, they'll be paying the full rate of what everybody else pays.
Okay, and then again, should something like that not come back to council? And we have a discussion about it before you,
Council doesn't manage the commission though.
should we not have some say? We don't manage the system, but when you're making concessions on our behalf, we should know, or it should be approved or should be discussed or something.
It's
I mean, the
concessions to
precedent the
commission,
last
though.
year was certainly there, it didn't come back to council either.
Yeah, I know, but I think that's the wrong precedent. Should be corrected.
I guess the biggest thing is it's under the commission's umbrella. It's not under the county's umbrella. It's we buy water from them. So when myself and Reeve Hall go there, we put on our commission hat and it's best dealt, the best practices we can do for the commission. And let's call a spade. Everybody thinks of the municipality that they're under also. You can't tell me that they don't. So
It's a commission hat that's put on the county head.
But it also brought down the cost of water in the county, like it brought up the cost in the town and down the cost of water in the county, and it's not council's job to micromanage the committees, right?
if we wouldn't have went with the flat rate last year, like with one rate across the board, we would have ended up, most likely our residents in Grassland, Wandering River would have been paying $111 a month. Right now, they're paying what,
The
91?
minimum right now is 120.
What's that?
The minimum right now is 120.
100.
It's a minimum of 10 cubes at up $12 a cube for water and sewer.
No, it's 913.
Plus $3 for sewer, wastewater.
Well, that's just a standard. That's wastewater and not in the town, that's worth a little bit more, I think, but
It said their water and sewer on that estimate on that was $40 a month for water and waste and sewer.
It's probably low. Their pricing though, I mean, I think that, their pricing is their price.
yeah.
Councillor Holland, did you have more questions on the trails or you okay? Good. Okay. On regional waste management, the update there. And again, I'll hope Councillor Minns will fill in the gaps, but with the budgets approved, there's a 2% increase in requisition. The next meeting is going to talk about some strategic planning for the long term with the commission. And I think the message was received very clearly around the closing of transfer sites. We'll see you later.
Thank you.
Waste collection rates went up by 6%. Actually was 10%, but we had a 4% fuel surcharge on there that was taken off and just put into the 6% rates. So that went up by 10%. Capital budget, like I said before, all coming out of dedicated reserves. Yep, fees bylaw, 2% increase, which was 2% last year, 2% this year again, just to keep up with everything as we keep going. More discussion next February regarding waste efficiencies, ideas, planning, trying to come up with better ways of dealing with waste instead of hauling it across Timbuktu. And regional landfill was broken into. The insurance liability is $5,000, and virtually I was talking to the commission manager this morning, and he said that we might get to that for cost of this break-in, but so no use going through insurance and that, so that's just an ongoing matter. It's what do you do? People really like garbage, I guess. They want to break into it. So yeah, other than that, that's about it.
I think one of the discussions, and maybe it is worth bringing up, is there an appetite at council to consider pilot projects for door-to-door trash collection
Yeah.
in the hamlets in terms of services? Hugely good, or
I do know that they have been done in the past, but 30 some years ago,
some of us were pretty young.
I would.
But regarding that though, is ERP. ERP is if you have a waste collection already in place, it'll just roll over into it, right? And there's some where they might even pay, they might even pay for that.
Like it's EPR, extended producer responsibility.
Yeah, ERP or EPR acronym.
Anyway, I think it's probably a discussion for a different day, but also just something to.
I know we've kind of threw it around this council before, and there are private companies, not even just the Waste Commission. There is a private company running around that will, look into possibly if you want to do it, but it's something let's think about it.
Next on the list is FCSS. I can't remember Councillor Chamzik.
I'm gonna make it as short as possible. I'm gonna actually write a written submission, so you guys don't have to hear it all, but I just want to hit some of the highlights. Honorable Danielle Smith was in attendance with the lineup of 20 MLAs during our FCSS AA conference. Mr. Van Dyken was there at a regional meeting. Discussion occurred around funding of FSSAA provincial grant received this year from the province, including a $5 million increase. Membership is working with the board for advocacy, transparency, requesting funding, and for better communication. Breakfast with MLA, Mr. Glenn Van Dyken discussed urban and rural divide and how centralized service is a deficit to rural residents. Because not all services are available and accessible for our local offices, and our local offices knows where those resources are available. One quick fact that it was over 400 people in attendance at the conference. And I know I'm next for Northern Lights. Do you want me to continue? Northern Lights, we had a general board meeting on the 24th, passed the budget of the 1.5 increase. Meeting dates discussed for the remainder of the year, and shared the plan of service. The executive meeting on the 8th in Elk Point, we sent a letter, the board sent a letter to Mr. McIver to thank Alberta government for grant increase that really helps our small rural libraries, advocating for more red tape reduction, and a formula determining how professional librarians are configured within a library system. Other than that, set meeting dates for upcoming meetings, and that's all I have.
Questions on either of those? If not, it would be appropriate to receive a motion to accept the committee reports as information. Councillor Minns is in a hurry. You beat you, Councillor Hall. Counselor Mins has moved, we accept the committee reports for information. All those in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, we are now down to, what are we at, 7-0. The motion is adopted. There's no reason to stay any longer according to my agenda. So Counselor Gerlich has requested that we adjourn the meeting at 3:15 PM.